Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Friday, gang. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We got a lot to get to after a very disappointing home opener for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last night at Princess Auto Stadium. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. We will be all over last night's game. And, you know, you would think that maybe this would be a bit of a downer show. We'll get to, listen, I think the Bomber team has earned a mulligan. You don't want to use that. You don't want a breakfast ball on the first hole, which I think is what the Bombers are looking for after last night. But there is a lot to dive into from last night in a performance of a team that just did not look prepared for prime time last night, and lost to the Montreal Alouettes in convincing fashion at home. We're going to break it down with John Hodge, a 3-down nation, as well as get John's thoughts on opening weekend in the Canadian Football League elsewhere. Hamilton, Calgary tonight, Edmonton, Sask tomorrow, BC, Toronto on Sunday. And Scott Billeck's going to jump on. I know Billeck was watching the game and was covering for the Sun. We'll talk to him about what he thought about the Bombers, as well as a couple of the big Jets topics that have been circulating throughout the week. But as much of a downer as the Bombers conversation might be for many Bomber fans, we've got something to cheer you up. We've got something to take you into the weekend. I promised we were going to have a very special guest, and guess who's joining us today? That's right. Bones. Rick Bowness. Now, what do we call him now, Remo? I guess he's a retired coach, potential TV star, and certainly a guy that we've wanted to get on for a long time. We've got a great conversation coming up with Bones a little bit later on in the program. Welcome to everybody in chat. Yes, there will be a marble race. Stick around after Bones at the end of the program. We'll fire that up around 2:45. So make sure you're here with us live on YouTube. And a big shout out to everybody listening on the podcast for Winnipeg Sports Talk that can't join us live today on YouTube. Have to thank our sponsors before we get into the program. Could not do it without them. Always appreciate the support that you listeners give these companies that make this show possible each and every day. Rolly's Transfer, Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, Canadian Club, Little Brown Jug, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, The Beer Can, and Hoagie Boys, the Winnipeg Gold Eyes, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend Country Club, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, and we will get to a why not question of the day revolving around last night's game for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray coming up a little bit later on. As I said, welcome to everybody in chat and welcome to you, Michael Remis. What is going on?
Feeling good. I'm just getting over all the flashbacks I had last night watching the Alouettes. That just brought me right back to Hamilton, watching them win the Grey Cup. So, you ever thought the Grey Cup was a best of three? I hand it to the Alouettes. Huss, they just took two from the Bombers. Pretty impressive.
Absolutely. They were, listen, they were better in every aspect of the game last night. And, listen, just before we dive into what happened, let me say a couple things about the start of Bomber season last night, not related to the play on the field. Well, first of all, it was ugly yesterday all day. At about 4 o'clock, I popped my head outside. It was relatively cold. It was still spitting rain. It was really windy. I'm thinking, what am I going to wear to the game tonight? Normally you'd wear a hoodie. Brought a jacket as well. I was a lot more confident that the Bombers would be good yesterday than the weather would be good last night. And that was wrong on both accounts. The Bombers weren't very good. And it was an absolutely glorious night at the park. And holy smokes, the crowd. We knew how much momentum the Bombers had at the end of last season with, I believe, 5 straight sellouts. A crowd yesterday in excess of 30,000. And, listen, this team is the envy of the rest of the Canadian Football League for a number of reasons. But part of it is the job that the Winnipeg Football Club has done in engaging younger fans. I know we hear that the demo of the Canadian Football League is older and, the league itself needs to engage young fans. Well, they need to talk to the folks here in Winnipeg, because the amount of sort of 18 to late 20s people that were in and around the North End last night, in and around the area, was, I don't want to say it's stunning because we've seen it before, but as I said, if they could duplicate this elsewhere in the Canadian Football League, this league would be so healthy. So it was great to see, from an organizational standpoint, from a fan base standpoint, how well everything went last night. Unfortunately, Remis, as great as it was in the stands and the weather cooperated, the actual product that the team put forth was not up to snuff and stunning. The Bombers put out a stat yesterday that in their last 40 home games at Canadian Stadium, they were 37-3. So I'll say that with the way that they've played year over year, game over game at home, you can get over one loss. I think what's just concerning about it is all of those conversations and the worries that some people had about not playing guys at all in the preseason and seemingly just standing around waiting for the year to start. Those worries were founded because that was a team that didn't look prepared and did not look ready to go.
Yeah, I'll say what Mike O'Shea would say. The Montreal Alouettes, they executed their game plan, and the Bombers didn't. You had kick returning was a big talk coming in. You have a fumble at the 14-yard line. Zach Collaros, not sharp, underthrowing Schoen before the half, throwing an interception that was kind of underthrown as well. Nick Dembski, usually pretty sure-handed. Seems like the Bombers are getting back into it. Fumbles early in the second half. So they just couldn't get anything going on offense. Then you had missing a couple field goals as well, taking momentum away. So, I think I had blacked out what happened at the Grey Cup, and I saw Tyler Sneed making big catches for Montreal. Philpott, massive game, just brought me right back to the shock of Hamilton, Huss. And this wasn't, I'm like, is this the Bombers team from 10 years ago that you still watch? Because as you said, since
whoa.
Well, obviously that's not true. But you mentioned the record. Yes, since 2018, 37-4 at home. So a lot of Bombers fans, you're not used to seeing losses at home, which is pretty pretty incredible, to be honest, that record from what we've seen. But they just looked off, Huss, and we saw that yesterday.
Yeah, no, for sure. By the way, are you shy today? Oh, you're joining us now.
I restarted my computer just before, and so I got to redo my camera. I couldn't get my camera working.
Excellent.
I'm back
anyways, nice to see you. Oh, and you got the Grey Cup hat on.
I got the Grey Cup hat.
A beauty.
Right?
That is a beauty. That's
for the CFL season. That's what they're playing for, the Grey Cup.
And the Bombers will need to be a lot better if they want to be in the mix for that Grey Cup a little later on. Again, 0-1 on the season, but disappointing. And listen, that's a big win for Montreal. Cody Fajardo's first win as a starter here at Princess Auto Stadium, where he had been, frankly, abused by the Blue and Gold for his entire Canadian Football League career. And the Bombers just really didn't have it. Listen, it was... It wasn't even just one area. It was the offense was just off. Zach Collaros was just off a little bit. There were some drops. There was just near misses, especially early on. I thought that one play to Kenny Lawler, he would normally have that. It was just maybe an inch past him. He didn't come down. They don't get the touchdown. Sergio Castillo, and we'll talk about this in a minute, did not have a great night, and some real controversy about the chipped balls that they have been using. But man, the turnovers, and it's one thing to see a brand new player like Myron Mitchell making a key fumble, a guy that's not established, terrible way to try to win a job and establish some trust in the coaching staff right off the bat. But it wasn't just new guys. Nick Dembski put one on the ground as well. There wasn't a single area of the operation, offense, defense, special teams, that looked anywhere close to the Blue Bombers standard. So it should be an interesting week of practice, I'll tell you that much, as the Bombers get out to play the Ottawa Redblacks, who will be waiting to play their first game of the season. Former Blue Bomber quarterback Drew Brown getting a chance to get against his old team. And, just Ottawa's luck. I have a feeling this Bomber squad is going to be very ornery as they go into the nation's capital. But it's quite clear that there is a lot of work to do for the Blue and Gold. If they want to compete, never mind win a Western Division title for the 5th straight season. Zach finished 20 for 33 for 209 yards and an interception. The Montreal defense did a good job of handling Brady Oliveira. He only had 38 yards in 11 attempts. Zoltan Schoen, 5 catches on 9 targets for 62 yards. And, I mean, listen, this started off right off the bat, and I think we kind of mentioned that the offense just seemed to be off early on. They had plenty of opportunities to get out to a lead in that first quarter. 1 for 6 for 8 yards and 1 first down after the first quarter. I mean, listen, you can look up and down. I mean, obviously the defense got gashed a few times and absolutely burned on that flea flicker that put the game away at the end. And man, what a game for Tyson Philpott, who, again, giving us flashbacks to Hamilton in November. 10 grabs, 141 yards, 2 TDs. There was a lot that went into that win for the Montreal Alouettes, a lot of positive for Montreal. And, I mean, listen, it's a long list of ugly for the Bombers after game 1.
It was great. At least, you rattled off some great stats there about Zach. I mean, they weren't great to hear, but we did have them. So shout out to the CFL.ca for getting their play-by-play game log working. The stats were working and accurate. They didn't favor the Bombers, but for something that we harped on so much last season, got to give credit where credit is due. And yes, Tyson Philpott, 11 targets, 10 catches, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns. What a performance for him. And Cody Fajardo, again, proving me wrong. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 254 yards. And Zach Collaros, I mean, they looked off. It looked like it was the third preseason game. I mean, you can make all the jokes, but they didn't play at all. They didn't take any reps together, and I think it certainly showed. Now, I think that time, even though they were down, you felt like they just needed a play to get back in it, but you keep missing field goals. You turn the ball over, you're not going to get any points. So they kind of made it easy for Montreal. And credit to the Montreal defense. I think, you know what it was, Huss? It was that guy who had the big Alouette sign on their side of the field, holding it up, blocking their great defensive coordinator Thorpe, so you couldn't see the signals. I think that guy deserves credit too. Do you see that guy?
I was on the Montreal side.
Oh, okay. I was on the opposites. I was like,
there was a few people that were kind of texting me or tweeting me about it, and I didn't really understand what had happened. And then you guys filled me in afterward. There was a few Alouettes fans. There was a guy sitting in our section in an Alouettes jersey, number 10, with the name bar Flavortown.
Like Guy Fieri?
I assume it was a tribute to Guy Fieri. He did not have a Guy Fieri haircut. So I wasn't too sure about that. There was a lot of hilarious name bars yesterday, some great jerseys. Just unfortunately, the guys that were wearing their own jerseys on the field, just off of it. I mean, hey, 18-game season. As Mike O'Shea said, they all count. It's not quite the same as, win or you go home, but you perform like that for many more times and you'll have a tough time putting yourself in a position to get in the win or go home. No time to panic, obviously. And that you've got it here in the notes. Now, since 2018, the Bombers 37-4 at home. One of these nights was bound to happen, but I do wonder how this, like, in a way, sometimes these sort of things can be good in the big picture. I was thinking that the Bombers had a bit of, it just seemed like, entitlement's a bad word, but they have been so good for so long, you just come to expect it. And it's obvious, and we'll hear this from Mike O'Shea, it's obvious they didn't prepare. They weren't ready to go like, they maybe had in the past. I think they were being extra cautious. They didn't want guys to get hurt, and I've certainly got time for that argument. But there's a level of work and preparation you need to go to be ready to do the job, and the Bombers just didn't have that yesterday night. So we'll hope to see a much better team in Ottawa next week. And then the next home game, Reem, June 21st, the kickoff to summer at Princess Auto Stadium, Bombers and the BC Lions. And we know how good BC is. And if the Bombers don't want to get worked like they did earlier last year against BC at home, they're going to need to be better in literally every aspect of the game, as opposed to the last night. Let's hear from the coach and the quarterback. We'll start off with Zach Collaros. Zach spoke after the game, after a dissing performance, and said that what we saw last night was not up to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers standard.
Yeah, obviously not up to our standard, not good enough. Disappointing, frustrating, all those things, especially to not play well in front of the home crowd. It doesn't feel good.
You feel out there at a sink, or what words would you use to describe?
Yeah, I certainly wish I would have played better. Starting there early, get a few completions, get a few first downs there. Probably the game looks a little bit different early on, so I got to do a heck of a lot better for us, and we'll improve.
Yeah. What do you attribute it to? Some people might say, you should have played a preseason game and all that stuff. But
no, I think
anything.
No, just got to complete the ball. It's on me.
They're deep pretty good too. Or?
Well, yeah. I don't want to take anything away from them. They do a really good job over there. It always comes down to execution, and they executed their plan better than us today.
Now there's Zach Collaros, and more on just what I was saying going in. I mean, you can't just show up. As much as 37-3, you sort of feel like you just show up and you're automatically winning. That was a tough lesson for the team to learn, and they learned it early on in the year. But it is certainly not time to panic. As I mentioned, Zach Collaros isn't going to panic after one game either.
Again, you never want to panic after one game. It's we got to continue to commit to each other day in and day out, and whatever that is for you to get better. To a man, everybody's got to look at themselves in the mirror and come back here tomorrow and be critical about the game. And after we're on to a tough team, in their home opener. So.
All right, so there's Zach Collaros on. Not panicking. That certainly will be the party line going forward, but I would imagine to see a very focused Blue Bomber team once they get back to practice, getting ready to head out to Ottawa to take on the Red Blacks in their home opener, as Collaros just mentioned. One more from Zach. One thing we didn't mention, in addition to just the ugly on the field, it could be worse because Kenny Lawler left the game with injury. Collaros talked about the loss of Kenny Lawler last night, and if he would change anything about the way they went about the preseason and not getting any reps for pretty much any of the important starters on offense.
No, I felt we had a good plan there. Like I said earlier, we practice hard. We go full speed in practice versus our defense. I've gone preseasons playing and not playing, so we wouldn't contribute to that at all.
How big of a problem is it losing Kenny?
Well, Kenny is one of the best players in the league, not the best player in the league. So. It's tough. I thought the young guys did a good job of stepping in and filling that role. You're never gonna really fill that void that is Kenny Lawler. I'm just really disappointed. For him coming out of the game, he's one of the most competitive people I've ever been around. So that's what makes it really tough.
Well, and that tells you, with the situation that the Bombers were in, it's one thing for a guy to get nicked up and you're up by 14 or 20 and you say, you know what, take the rest of the night off. But I think it speaks to the concern about Kenny Lawler that he left the game, didn't return. And that is the one way for this to go from an unfortunate start to a bit of a disaster if there's anything long-term for 89 and how important he is to the Bomber offense.
Yeah, he took a big hit there, Huss, and went off. They said upper body. I don't know if some speculation what arm or wrist. I haven't seen any updates on Kenny Lawler today, but yeah, part of their offense is having these three great receivers, and Dembski, Schoen, and Kenny Lawler. Also Drew Wolodarski making catches, and was it Clercius in there? He had a couple grabs yesterday, so we'll see if they can find someone. Was he wearing 86? Give me Carlton Agudosi flashbacks. I remember that game where he looked like Calvin Johnson.
Next one. Yeah.
That was a crazy game. But it was certainly a tough one for the Bombers offense. They looked out of sync, putting anything going. We did see Chris Strevler on there. He almost had a little injury scare there as well. Or he did have an injury scare as well, but he seemed to be okay.
That was a cheap shot, and he was pissed off about it. First off, on Strev, early on in the first half, sitting there, and the Bombers had a play, and you saw it was about 2 yards, 1.5, 2 yards. And I mean, where I was sitting, the section was full. Everyone was like, oh, this is Strev time. This is Strev. It took a little longer for him to come out, but very great warm reception for Strevler coming back in a Bomber jersey in game action for the first time. A lot of fans on their feet. He looked good in short yardage. So it was nice to have Strevler back. And that's obviously going to be a big part of their MO this year. But I think we also saw the fact that there's still going to be some work to do on the offensive line. Sean Lemon got in and sacked Zach Caleros, I think, on his fourth drop back of the game, or the fourth snap of the game. And there was a number of times where Zach was under a lot of pressure early. So I do like Craig Smith's thought. Well, I don't like Craig Smith's thought in chat, Lawler broken arm. God, I hope that is not the case. But he did mention, and Craig's got a great mind with all his years of scouting, Bonds look good, impressed with Haba. Those DTs, Ford and Holm, will be okay. We'll get better together each week. Let's quickly hear from Osh, what Mike O'Shea had to say about last night's game. Here's the head coach of the Bombers.
Step behind, really just felt like we were behind a little bit. I think there was times where we were doing okay. I thought both defenses played pretty well early on, and then they got us on a couple things that you'd like to have back, obviously, but really feels like I don't know that I had them prepared well enough for this one, right? Like just that missing that step, missing a bit of the football sense as we went along. I think we could have done a better job. I could have done a better job getting them ready. Those last bunch of practices in training camp probably could have been a little different.
All right, Mike O'Shea on the game overall. Here's one more from Osh. Just asked if rust was a factor, for the guys that didn't play at all in the preseason and didn't look particularly ready for prime time last night.
There's a bit of that for sure. I mean, I don't think that the veteran group really has to play. I don't know that I'd change that idea, especially the 6 days between, and Montreal the same 6 days, right? The 6 days between. I think I could have done something differently ahead of that to make sure these guys were a little bit more prepared, But the guys that missed training camp, they're going to be a step behind regardless, right? They're going to be missing a few of those fast-paced details, right? That click when you're finely tuned.
All right, we got more Bomber talk coming up with John Hodge of 3 Down Nation, Scott Billeck coming up, and don't forget Rick Bowness on Winnipeg Sports Talk a little later on after we finish digesting the Bombers' loss to the Montreal Alouettes yesterday. Just before we bring in John, I'm not suggesting there might be an exodus of players coming out of the team, but if there is anyone on the Bombers that needs to move in the next little bit, our friends at Rolly's Transfer are the best in the business here. Family owned and operated for over 60 years and the most trusted name in moving in Winnipeg, southern Manitoba. Rolly's Transfer can help you and your family on your next move. with the most reliable service and the best prices around. With their extensive logistics business, they're all around southern Manitoba on a daily basis, which means flexible routes, flexible times, and a great deal for you when it comes to your next move. They've got a brand new launched website at rollies.com. Click top right, you see the request a quote feature. You just put in where you're moving to, what you're moving, when you're moving, and the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around with a competitive quote to get you moving and take as much stress out of a very stressful gig for you and your family. For your next move, use Rollies Transfer, Manitoba's most trusted name in moving services for over 60 years. Find out more and request your quote today at rollies.com. Our friends at Consolidated Supply are busy right now. We got some gorgeous weather coming up, a lot of projects getting underway. And listen, for both residential and commercial needs, Consolidated Supply has been helping Canadians for decades as the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf, golf carts, and more as the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, and other great options for your property, including hot tubs, amazing outdoor kitchens, maybe a robot mower from the new Crest line of power tools they're maintaining. And of course, they're the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Pop by and check out everything Consolidated Supply has going on. Open to the public is their showroom, 1395 Niagara Road East. And you can find out more on everything Consolidated Supply has going on online at cte.ca. And hey, the weekend is here. You might be getting out on a boat, a Sea-Doo, a camper, all those things you need batteries for. And there's no better place to take care of your battery needs than the local leaders, Manitoba Battery. Now with 2 locations, the original one on Logan Avenue and their brand new store on Dover Court in the south side of the city. Manitoba Battery has you covered with literally all your battery needs at the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores. And if you can make it down to one of their 2 locations, no worries. They'll send you your batteries. They'll deliver them to you anywhere inside the perimeter for free with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. Save time, shop local, and get the best price in town at Manitoba Battery. Give them a call or order online today at manitobabattery.com. And, well, the weekend is here, and it's always a great time heading into a Friday night for a little Canadian club. I can tell you that Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey was well represented last night at at the park. A lot of CC and Gingers in fans' hands and a lot of action in the North End around the Rum Hut. Of course, Canadian Club available throughout Princess Auto Stadium is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And as you're getting ready for what should be a beautiful summer weekend, pop by your local Manitoba Liquor Mart and make it the original Canada's best and oldest Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club. All right, more on last night's game. We bring in John Hodge of 3 Down Nation. John, always great to have you on the program. How are you today on this fine Friday?
I'm doing well, Hus. It was a very late night for me at the stadium with not only my post-game column for 3downnation.com, but of course the kicking fiasco, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I'm doing well. I hope you are as well.
It is great to have you on as always, and yeah, we'll get to the kicking story in a minute. We've got another quote from O'Shea on all of that. It was way more than just kicking last night. I mean, I don't know where we want to start. Offense, defense, special teams, turnovers. There wasn't really one area of the operation that seemed ready to go last night.
I think defensively there was a lot to like. There was obviously a few plays not to like, but to me the defense ultimately did a good job. When you have special teams turning the ball over, 14 yards from your own end zone, and you've got the offense failing to produce almost any yardage for essentially the first 20 minutes of the game, that's a lot to ask of your defense. And there were a couple breakdowns in coverage. I thought Tyrell Ford had a really tough night in his second career start at corner, but part of the challenge in Winnipeg is literally nobody throws at Dietrich Nichols at boundary half. People generally don't throw at Evan Holm at field side half. And so the corners see a lot of pressure. Terrell Bonds, I thought, had a very nice first career CFL start. Ford struggled on the other side, but he's going to be fine. Special teams wise, it was a really bad night. I mean, Myron Mitchell obviously had the fumble. his first career game in the CFL. He's somebody who didn't even do a ton of returning. I think he had 42 career return attempts at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And obviously he wasn't the favorite to win the job. He only had one rep in the entire preseason. Chris Smith, this was going to be his job. He got hurt, got cut. This team took 3 special teams penalties. James Letcher Jr. put up a 37-yard punt return. Jamison Sheehan kicked the ball out of bounds. Illegal punt, 10-yard penalty. And, of course, Sergio Castillo missed 2 field goals and a convert. Like, the special teams really, really hurt Winnipeg. Should be noted, Montreal's special teams unit's probably the best in the league. It's a tough test for week 1, but you got to be better than that. And then offensively, to me, this is where the real concern is. I mean, Zach Collaros came out extremely rusty. I know a lot of people said that he should have played in the preseason. I asked him point blank post game, hindsight being 2020, do you wish you played in the preseason? He essentially said, no, I haven't played in a lot of preseasons before. I have played in others. He just said he has to execute better. I actually thought the protection was pretty good for him. I know the run game did not get going. 11 carries for Brady Oliveira, only 38 yards. But Kenny Lawler, I mean, that is the real red flag here. He left the game in the second quarter with an injury that appeared to be his wrist, maybe his hand, maybe his forearm, not totally clear, but it didn't look like something that's going to have him bouncing back for week 2 in Ottawa. And to me, when you miss Kenny, a player who Zach Collaros said might not just be the best receiver in the CFL, but could be the best player in the CFL, that's a huge problem heading into week 2.
Yeah, and I was just saying, like, if the situation was different, if you're up by 14 or 20, like the Bombers have routinely been over this incredible run, I still couldn't wrap my head around 37-3 on home field going into last night since 2018. If a guy gets nicked up, hey, no problem, take the rest of the night off. But considering the way the game was going, the fact that he was ruled out, you realize that this could be serious. And a long-term injury for Kenny Lawler is something I don't think many Bomber fans want to think about right now. But, certainly for next week and maybe the week after in BC and who knows beyond that, an offense that already was struggling to do much positive will have to do it potentially without a guy that is, as Zach said, one of the most dangerous players in 3-down football.
Well, and Winnipeg had to start the season without Kenny for 6 games last year as he was in the States, unable to get into the country, stemming from the drunk driving incident that occurred during his first stint with the Blue Bombers. That being said, Ontario Wilson making his first career start, he's somebody who, Zach Collaros said, I don't think he took a single rep at X throughout the preseason or even training camp. And for the uninitiated, that's the boundary wide receiver spot that Kenny Lawler plays. So after Kenny goes down, all of a sudden you've got a guy in Ontario Wilson who's making his first career start, and he's having to play a position he's never practiced. And there was some confusion I noticed in the second half, at least one play, a few receivers, and then Collaros himself were getting on Wilson to switch to the other side of the formation. It appeared that he lined up completely wrong, and then Kevin Sklarcius, the club's second-round pick out of the University of Connecticut, he was, a special teams backup kind of guy. All of a sudden, he's thrust into the lineup on a full-time basis at slot back. He made a couple of catches I thought played well, but that's a big ask, right? We know that one of the issues facing this team this season is they lost some key veterans this offseason. It was bound to happen. Winnipeg was by far and away the oldest team in the CFL last year, and if you don't start churning over the roster at some point, everybody gets old at the same time. So you can't have that happen. And with Adam Bighill out of the roster due to injury, that forced the team to get even younger. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be mistakes. Should people in Bomberland be hitting the panic button? To me, the answer is a resounding no. It's one game of an 18-game season. The CFL season is very much a marathon, not a sprint. Exhibit A, the Montreal Alouettes getting super hot late last year and going on a Cinderella Grey Cup run, which nobody predicted, especially at the start of the year when everybody picked them to finish 4th in the East amid an ownership debacle that had transpired that offseason. But obviously not the start the Bombers were looking for, and it could, unfortunately, play into week 2 again without Kenny in the lineup. To me, Kenny is the most important piece of that receiving corps for Winnipeg, and they're going to sorely miss him if, in fact, he is unable to play.
John, a lot of talk about the holes in the lineup that were, made when certain individuals found bigger checks elsewhere, or in Action Jeffco's case, retired. Overall, we kind of mentioned that there were a few guys that sort of had a tough run. Any newcomers sort of stand out in a positive way for you last night that bodes well for their potential contributions moving forward?
Yeah, I thought, again, Terrell Bonds at boundary corner, I thought had a good game. The Owls didn't throw at him a ton. They took a deep shot to Charleston Rambo, who won their boundary wide receiver job coming out of training camp. Tevin Jones, former Saskatchewan Rough Rider, I think was penciled in there, and Rambo beat him out. Early on, they took about a 40-yard deep shot to the middle of the field. Rambo outran it a little bit, tried to fight back, and I thought that Terrell Bonds did a nice job of avoiding the pass interference penalty, because oftentimes when a receiver fights to come back to the ball, that's when the DB grabs a jersey and the flag comes out. I also thought Eric Lofton had a really good game at right tackle. Winnipeg gave up 2 sacks. One of them, Derek Wiggin, just slipped by Chris Kolankowski, the center. The other came from Sean Lemon, who beat Patrick Neufeld on a play where Eric Lofton didn't actually stay in a block. He rolled out to his right. It almost looked like he was rolling out to help block a bubble screen, but I don't know if there was confusion on the play. Zach Collaros held onto the ball. It looked like he went through a few reads, so I'm not sure if that was a mistake on Lofton's part rolling out. Without knowing the play call, it's impossible to say for sure. But Zach was very pleased with his protection post-game. He thought they did a good job up front. And, 2 sacks, it doesn't look great, but it wasn't like Zach took a ton of hits last night. He was generally dealing with clean pockets, or at least semi-clean pockets, most of the way through the game. And the Alouettes are a tough pass rush, certainly. So I thought, at least for game 1, Eric Lofton gets a passing grade, replacing Jamarcus Hardrick at that right tackle spot.
All right, let's get into this kicking story. And I will be honest, I heard all this talk about chipped balls, and I'm like, what the heck are chipped balls? Well, we learned last night what chipped balls are. Sergio Castillo, take us, first of all, fill people in if they're not familiar what this controversy is. And were you around Sergio Castillo when he dropped his extensive comments on the situation after having a pretty tough night kicking the football?
Yeah, I'll start even a little bit before that. In the last few weeks, because some preseason games featured chip balls in the kicking game, some of them did not. Last season, a number of CFL games used chip balls. However, the chip balls were not used in the kicking game. Kicking and punting were regular balls. And for the uninitiated, by a chipped ball, the league has now put a small microchip inside the footballs to help produce analytics and advanced stats through Genius Sports, the league's information partner. The issue with the chip balls is when a ball is thrown from a quarterback, let's say, the ball is spiraling in the air. The chip, I believe, is located just beside the laces, which means that by spinning the chip and the kind of slightly off-weight nature of the ball, it doesn't change anything. When you have the ball traveling end over end, like it sometimes happens on Jamison Sheehan's punts, or happens obviously on field goal and point after attempts, the uneven distribution of the weight, the kickers are claiming, is causing the ball to fly very bizarrely. And again, I heard of this issue before the regular season started. I had people tipping me off saying, look, the players are not happy about this, that the chip balls are going to be used to kick this year. We could see a lot of misses early. And I said, interesting. Let's wait and see what happens week 1. Well, lo and behold, the first game happens. And I was the first person to Sergio Castillo's locker post-game. And he saw me walking up and he just goes, okay. And he grabs his hands and he goes, all right, everybody come over. We're doing this. Because it's clear that him and the rest of the CFL's kicking fraternity, which from what I understand is a pretty close group. I mean, it's not a big league, and a lot of these kickers have been around for 10, 12, 15 years. In the case of Sean White, Rene Paredes has been around for that long. Sergio's been in the league almost a decade. And he essentially explained the problem. He said in training camp, in practice, he was 60% at best with the chip balls. With the unchipped balls, he was 90%. And it wouldn't surprise me if Sergio gave a heads up to the other kickers around the league that he had done this. So, I'd imagine because the kickers, from what Brett Lothar has said, who, by the way, in addition to being the Riders kicker, is also the vice president of the CFL Players Association. He released a statement. Sean White released a statement out of BC. Lewis Ward, who's obviously a tremendously accurate kicker with the Ottawa Redblacks, released a statement. They petitioned the CFL to not use chip balls in the kicking game. They only found out the night before the game that their vote to not use the balls, from the kicker's standpoint at least, didn't matter. The league was going to use the chip balls anyway. And also, the USFL ran into this problem in 2021. They used chip balls for 2 weeks. The kickers were awful. They went back to non-chipped balls, and everything was fine. So I know that there are some skeptics, right? They just see a kicker who missed some kicks, and they're going, wow, this guy's full of excuses. Well, if Sergio was a rookie, right, and nobody was coming to his defense, I would agree, right, that this is just a whiner. But Sergio Castillo's been in this league for almost 10 years. He's not a complainer. He's not a whiner. And every other kicker in the league is saying, we're having the same problems. David Cote last night missed a convert. I'm interested to see what will happen in tonight's game, in the kicking game, between, of course, the Calgary Stampeders and Hamilton Tiger Cats. But this is a big deal, Huss. It really is.
We've got a clip from Mike O'Shea because he was asked about this afterwards. Remo, if you want to fire this one, this is just O'Shea discussing Sergio's complaints about the chip balls in the kicking game.
I certainly understand that they're engaging in a lot of conversation about it, right? He's a 90% kicker, right? He kicks extremely well, and like any, you listen to the golfers, you know, they'll hit a clean shot, and the ball won't do what they thought it was going to do because it hits something or something happens, and they'll know I hit it clean. And you got to trust that they're, you know, when they say that, you believe them because they've done not just 10,000, 20,000 shots, right, like that. Well, Sergio's kicked 20,000 footballs. If he says he hits it clean, he hits it clean. If it doesn't do what he thinks it should do, you know, there's something there, I guess. So
he's not one to complain. So
no, I don't think so. But I mean, either way, we got to be better across the board, not just special teams, not kicking, not whatever. We got to be better.
As you mentioned, John, this is not an isolated incident. We've seen this in other leagues. We're hearing from all the other kickers in the league. How do you see this going forward? And does this come down to a commissioner's decision, or is there another way that this gets adjudicated?
That's a great question. We reached out at 3 Down Nation for comment from the CFL regarding the concern that kickers have had. We have yet to receive a reply. I should note that the request was made at 2:30 a.m. Eastern time as I was leaving the stadium last night. So I wasn't surprised I didn't get one right away, but we've yet to receive one at this point in time. I don't know who made the decision. I know Greg Dick, who is, I believe, essentially second in command at the CFL head office to Randy Ambrosi, was in the stadium last night. He was in the press box. He was on a phone call. And from what I was hearing, he seemed to be in conversation about the gigantic sign that the Montreal Alouettes were using to cover Noel Thorpe, which I suspect is against the rules. But, you know, that seemed to be the distraction for the league last night. Obviously, this is something that will need to be dealt with. I think for the sake of, you know, fairness and equity, you should probably keep the chip balls for week 1 if you use them in one game. Right? I don't think that they should go back immediately to regular footballs if that's even on the table. But I'll give credit to the players and the kickers here. They went through the proper channels before the season started to privately express their concern to the league. And Sergio did say that, yeah, there was testing done on these balls, but none of the testing was done by CFL kickers. I don't know who did the testing, but Sergio seemed to imply that they were not professionals. So, you know, you give credit to the players for going about this the right way. And now that the league has chosen officially to ignore them and these chip balls have, you know, not affected the outcome of the game, I think Winnipeg loses that game last night, regardless of whether or not Sergio Castillo makes his kicks. But obviously the players are upset, and it appears as though these balls are not working well enough. And you also wonder about the Jamison Sheehan punt that went out of bounds, right? Not that he hasn't done that before, but does it fly differently if it's a non-chipped ball and it's more evenly weighted?
Oh, it is a great point. I'll give Remis some credit. He had a funny crack on Twitter today Which side are you on? The league's top kickers or the company that couldn't put together working statistics for all of last season? That was a positive, John. Stats are back in the Canadian Football League and they work again.
Yeah, the live stats for Winnipeg's first preseason game in Regina were awful. The preseason week 2 stats were really good, which was actually quite impressive because they had 4 games on all at the same time. Week 3 was good and last night was good with the live stats. I will say there were times where it was hard to believe the live stats because the stats were so bad. For Winnipeg mostly, but also for Montreal at times. But then you went, oh no, that does kind of match what we're seeing. We just, there have only been 9 first downs in 25 minutes. And that is something that Mike O'Shea, by the way, something really interesting. Mike O'Shea is I think a very gregarious man when you talk to him one-on-one. He is not somebody who loves the spotlight with the media, right? Some coaches love to bask in the attention and the glow and talking and asking questions and responding. Mike O'Shea's not like that. He's pretty short. He can be pretty curt. Strangely, last night after the loss, he seemed weirdly at peace with the world. He gave long answers. At times, you almost had to cut him off to get in your next question because he was opining, which I thought was very, very odd. That being said, one of the things he did say is he bemoaned that the game was, and I believe this is an exact quote, a bit of a yawner for the fans who came down to Princess Auto Stadium. I'm sure if you're the CFL League office, you're hoping that the first game is 55-48 or something like that, and not a low-scoring slugfest, which is unfortunately what we got. But I'm sure we will have more entertaining games as the season progresses.
Well, hopefully this weekend. Let me just quickly ask you about the rest of the league going in. Who do you like this week? Basically, pick'ems in the next couple. Hamilton, Calgary tonight. And then a really intriguing Sunday matchup between 2 teams that both are looking to be much better than they've been recently, the Edmonton Elks and the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Well, I picked the Bombers to win and cover last night, so feel free to take that for what it's worth. If you want to use my picks as examples of what not to do, feel free. But tonight, Hamilton, Calgary, I'm taking the Stampeders because you're at least getting a 1.5, at least the last time I checked. This is a team that I think has 2 very solid runners. BJ Emmons is a newcomer. Diedrich Mills played last season. I think Calgary's interior or that offensive line is very good. And the Ticats are very young in their linebacking core. Simone Lawrence is obviously retired. I think that's a spot Calgary can take advantage of, potentially take some pressure off of Jake Mayer. Bo Levi Mitchell, future Hall of Famer, but I can't remember the last time I watched Bo play and went, wow, that guy is a fantastic quarterback. It would be great if he proved me wrong because it would be an amazing storyline in the CFL in 2024 if Bo Levi Mitchell lit it up. Just like Ed Hervey said he was going to do, the Ticats GM said he expects Bo to have an Anthony Calvillo-like renaissance late in his career in Hamilton, which would be great. I just don't see it happening. So I will take the Stampeders just to cover. Saskatchewan and Edmonton is an interesting one. I've taken Saskatchewan against the spread just because, again, we're getting a couple points. But I do think that Edmonton is going to be improved. I do have some questions looking at the depth chart that came out today, making me rethink my pick maybe a little bit straight up. A lot of youth on the defensive side of the ball, particularly in the secondary at strong side linebacker. But with that being said, I think McLeod Bethel Thompson will be the antidote that team really needed. That offense under Stephen McAdoo last year was awful. I think Jarius Jackson is a competent offensive coordinator. And I think McLeod Bethel Thompson is not a sensational quarterback, but is certainly a competent quarterback. So I will take the Elks straight up, Sask against the spread. But again, as you said, these are essentially pick'ems. Which is tough in week 1. Usually in week 1 of the CFL, there's money to be made taking dogs. If you took the dog last night, obviously you made money. But these are awfully tight ones.
The Sunday game, the finale to week 1 is a really interesting one. And I think, for BC that traditionally hasn't traveled well to Toronto and Montreal, I think there might be an advantage to kicking off their season there as opposed to making that trip in the middle of the year. But I'm really interested to see what the Argos look like without Chad Kelly, with all the turmoil that they've had. And maybe as much as that's been clearing the headlines, losing a lot of key players, especially on that defense that was so dominant last year. BC's a 5-point favorite going into Toronto. And I think a lot of people, myself included, maybe not expecting as much of the double blue, at least in the first half of the season, compared to the way they really set the bar last year through the regular season.
Well, I mean, when you win 16 games, right, you're going to lose talent in free agency, and you're not going to be able to duplicate that. I don't have Toronto winning 16 games. That being said, I do think Toronto is going to be better than a lot of people think. Ryan Dinwiddie, I think, has done a tremendous job working with quarterbacks throughout his career. He had Nick Arbuckle looking really good in Calgary in 2019. He had Nick Arbuckle looking solid again in Toronto in 2021. He coached McLeod Bethel-Thompson to lead the CFL in passing yards one season. He led McLeod Bethel-Thompson to lead the CFL in touchdown passes one season. And then he took Chad Kelly, a guy who was coaching junior football just a couple of years ago and was like a disgraced NFL player, and made him the MOP. So Cameron Dukes is not a guy who's from a big school. He's from the NAIA. He came out of nowhere. I thought he did a great job in his first career start last year at Princess Auto Stadium in hostile territory in front of a sold-out crowd. Didn't win the game, but for a first-time start in a very, very tough building, I thought he played pretty darn well. That being said, I do have the Lions to win this game and cover. I think that they are going to hit the ground running more quickly than Toronto, who, as you mentioned, lost not just, of course, Chad Kelly to a lengthy suspension, but lost a number of other talented players in free agency. That being said, to me, the matchup to watch is Toronto's defensive line. Toronto's defensive line arguably got better this offseason. They got Jake Ceresna in a trade from Edmonton. Jake Ceresna, Folarin Orimolade, Robbie Smith, and Sean Oakman is, in my opinion, the best defensive line in the CFL. And if you were to find a weakness with the BC Lions, it would be the offensive line. And in my opinion, especially the interior of that offensive line, I think there is hay to be made there. For the Argonauts, I think getting a ton of pressure on Vernon Adams Jr. was a huge factor in VA throwing 6 picks the last time he was at BMO Field. But again, early on in the season, I agree with you, Huss. I think this is a nice time for the Lions to go into Toronto and play. I've got them winning and covering. But again, I expect the Argos to be better than a lot of people seem to think.
John, I just got to give you some love. Folks, if you haven't gone to 3 Down already, and listen, I know there's some Bomber fans that might not really want to dive in deeply to last night's game, considering the way that it went, but just a great breakdown, an extensive read. It is all up there. That was for last night's game with you being here in Winnipeg. But for people that aren't familiar or maybe new listeners that haven't seen 3 Down, give a little rundown of what you and the rest of the team have coming up this weekend, next week, and throughout the CFL season.
Yeah, my gamer from last night was 3,500 words, which admittedly is long even for me. So I will probably cut it down moving forward. But anything you want to know from last night is in that column. It's entitled Winnipeg Blue Bombers Fall Flat and Grey Cup Rematch with Alouettes. I've also got a separate column on the Sergio Castillo chipped balls. And at 3 Down, after every game, we have a local reporter who will write from each team's perspective. Pablo Herrera Vargara, my colleague in Montreal, has an Alouettes perspective article with analysis up. Tonight, we will have instant analysis from a Calgary source and a Hamilton source. Ryan Ballantyne and Troy Durrell are covering that for us. And we also have previews each game for the depth charts. So if you're curious, for example, Saturday's game, Riders and Elks, if you're curious about the depth chart moves, who's new, who's not, who's moving around, who's staying the same, we've got content there. So pregame, postgame, we've got localized coverage from every team's perspective, and we will have it for all 81 regular season games, every postgame and postseason game, I should say, and of course the Grey Cup. So please stay tuned.
Hey, John, just on the way out, I know we kind of, for obvious reasons, focused on everything the Bombers did or didn't do. What were your takeaways of the defending Grey Cup champion Alouettes?
Well, they don't look really any different than they did last year, right? Like, this is a team that plays opportunistic football. Like, they actually remind me a lot of the Matt Nichols Blue Bombers. Like, Cody Fajardo is tasked with going out there and playing mistake-free football, picking up a couple of first downs with his legs. He doesn't have it in him to go for 100 yards anymore along the ground, but he can be shifty. He can make a couple of plays. He got a really nice first downer on the right edge last night when Winnipeg's defense lost contain. And then defensively, they swarmed the ball. Noel Thorpe's defenses are sensational, and their special teams units really underrated. Joseph Zima, probably the best punter in the CFL. James Letcher Jr., very dangerous on the return game. And their punt cover teams were unbelievable. On the Myron Mitchell fumble, if you go back and watch that play, I admittedly forget which Alouette was right on top of them. But like you're not allowed to be within the 5-yard halo. Whoever was the first man down for Montreal was about 5.01 yards away from Myron Mitchell when he caught that ball. Like, they do such an incredible job. Byron Archambault, the special teams coordinator in Montreal. So the Owls are not going to win a lot of games, 40-12. They're going to win their games kind of ugly, like they did last night. It's going to be a lot of low-scoring games. By the way, it's the same exact formula the Université de Montréal Carabins used last season to win the Vanier Cup. And the reason I mention that is because the person who really built that program is Danny Machocha, who is now the general manager of the Alouettes. I think there's a lot of tie over there, and I don't think that's an accident. Danny Machocha likes defensive football. He likes to play great special teams. The NFL, you watch 4-down football, special teams don't matter a whole heck of a lot. In the CFL and Canadian football, special teams is a true third phase of the game that can change everything. So I thought they looked a lot like they did last season. Fajardo made the one early mistake, threw a bad pick to Brian Cole. After that, they needed opportunistic plays to make plays, like the flea flicker, for instance. That's not Cody Fajardo stepping back, going through 3 reads, and throwing the perfect pass on a rope. That was him going, okay, we got a trick play, and I just got to throw it as far as I can. And Cody Fajardo is capable of doing that. But hey, it's not a sexy formula, but it works.
That was a real dagger, that that flea flicker at the end. And man, what a game from Philpott as well. Yeah, a lot of bad memories of November in Hamilton coming back for Bomber fans last night. Be an interesting week of practice as they get back to it, and they'll look to go and spoil a home opener for the Red Blacks next week. John, again, just an awesome recap. The 3,500. You went far and beyond the normal last night, but again, there was a lot to get to coming out of a disappointing night for the Bombers to kick off the season at Princess Auto Stadium. Have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the rest of week 1 in the league, and we'll look forward to doing this again soon.
Thanks for having me, Us. Anytime.
Great stuff. There is John Hodge still to come on the program. Scott Billeck up next, and then an extended convo with Rick Bowness before we drop the marbles at the end of the program. Of course, John just gave us a great recap of last night's game at Princess Auto Stadium. Princess Auto tailgate was fun last night. It was funny. The weather, I think, scared some people off, got some people to the game later than they normally would, and then it actually ended up being absolutely gorgeous for the actual game. Come 2 Fridays from now, or I guess 2 weeks today, when the Bombers are back against the BC Lions. First day of summer, longest day of the year. It'll be a long day down around Princess Auto Stadium. Get to that Princess Auto tailgate party early for the $5 beers, $3.50 hot dogs, and more. And don't forget Princess Auto and the Bombers welcoming all Winnipeggers and Manitobans to Princess Auto Stadium for the big Canada Day celebration on July 1st, headlined by the Sam Roberts Band and Doc Walker, beginning at noon, with great activities for the entire family. Main stage starting at 3, and again, completely free. So mark your calendar to finish off the long weekend and celebrate Canada Day with Princess Auto and the Bombers down at Princess Auto Stadium. And of course, hey, if you want to check out Princess Auto for all of your needs with the coolest tools and equipment around, Panet Road or Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Our friends at Wallace & Wallace are busy right now, and I know there's probably some people that have big projects on the weekend. Listen, if you're thinking about a new fence, why not let the experts at Wallace & Wallace take care of that? Wallace & Wallace has been doing it since 1946 as the experts in the field. And of course, you've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. If you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter did a number on your old one, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if you need a new garage door, don't forget they've got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors as well. You can give Wallace a call, 452-2700. Their team will arrange a time to come down and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them online at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. And hey, with the weather getting nice, looking ahead to July and August, it is wedding season, and I know there's probably many of you that are looking into your closet going, whoa, I got to up my menswear game. Well, we know just the spot for you. That, of course, is F Apparel at 190 Smith Street downtown. Custom suits starting at just $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an amazing selection of menswear accessories. If you're in a wedding or in a wedding party, talk to the guys about a 15% discount when the fellas get their suits at F Apparel. And they've got a great promo on as well for 2024 high school grads. They can fill you in on that in store. F Apparel is at 190 Smith Street, downtown. Make an appointment or check them out online at that's EPH Apparel.com. And I know there'll be some people getting on the water this weekend. Cannot wait to get out to Aikens Lake a little later on this summer. If you are looking for a world-class fly-in fishing destination where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the spot. And as amazing as the world-class fishing is, the hospitality of the Terren family and the Aikens team might even be better. Go to aikenslake.com right now for more information on options and availability for the 2024 fishing season. And check them out and all the great times and huge fish coming out of the water on all their socials at Aikens Lake. All right, let's get Scotty Billeck in from the Winnipeg Sun for a little visit. Don't forget Bones on the show a little later on. Scotty, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Going, dude. Recovering from a long night at the football stadium last night, so but it's all good.
Yeah, long night for you guys. Long night for the Bombers. That was not what
weird, man.
It was. And I mean, listen, I still can't get over that stat that the team put out. 37-3 at home. We've been spoiled. The Bomber fans have been spoiled.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, of those 37 wins, you didn't see a team come out looking as lost at times, unprepared, and just off as the team did last night.
You know, it's interesting. The whole night was interesting, right? Like, obviously the game was there. And when we get down to the room last night, and Mike O'Shea is sort of like still pretty fired up about the whole night. And he gives like almost a 13-minute post-game press conference where he's sort of like, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say that he wasn't, like, it's almost like he was just like, like I just didn't do enough to get this team. Like he didn't seem all that concerned about how they played, because I think he just realizes like most of their offense didn't play in the a lot of those guys barely played at all, even saw the field in training camp, right? Like Brady Alvera didn't see him once. Nick Dembski barely at all. Kenny Lawler didn't do a whole lot. A lot of those guys, and Lawler's injured now. Zach Collaros, I mean, he obviously did some stuff in training camp, but he didn't play a lick of football in the two preseason games. So you just kind of wonder what was going on there. And then Sergio Castillo comes out and he kind of goes off on these balls, the chips in the balls, which was really interesting, because you don't really often see a guy like basically court reporters over to him, right, to kind of deliver a message. And that's what he did. And he had a tough night, right? And, you look at Cote on the other side, and he didn't have as tough of a night. His field goals were basically chip shots. I don't think either one of them were, maybe 22 yards was the longest of his. He also missed an extra point. Obviously Castillo missed 2 field goals, 38 and 40 yards, and then the extra point there too. And I mean, that's a rough night for Sergio Castillo, but you believe him, don't you? Like you believe him that these balls have sort of changed things up. And so you wonder, I mean, if he says he's only going to be 60% and that's a good day, that's going to be a tough year, from the hashes for the Bombers. So yeah, it was really interesting. Collaros had no feel for the ball. Underthrew Dalton Schoen twice in the end zone. One of them was picked. Overthrew Kenny Lawler, who really often it doesn't matter what you throw Kenny Lawler, he often comes down with it. But that one was way too overthrown. for him to even get it. It was almost like a toss out of bounds. So the running game couldn't get going. The defense gave up some weird big plays, but they were pretty good. Other than that, like I didn't have a huge issue with the defense as much. And Mike O'Shea said that as well, right? You like both defenses. A weird dude on the sideline. I don't know. You were there last night. I don't know if people in the chat saw the TV with the big guys holding up the big Alouettes
See, I was
sign.
behind. I was behind the Alouettes, so I
Right,
didn't
so you're on the
really
other
see
side.
that. People on the west side saw it, and there was a lot of talk about it.
Just weird. Like, I mean, who does like it's like I was talking to Eddie Tate, who works for the Bombers now, former Free Press guy, former Winnipeg Sun guy, about it. And he said, oh, yeah, it happens from time to time, but I don't remember ever seeing a guy with such an obnoxious sign walk onto the field, so block the defense from, or sorry, the offense from seeing what Noah Thorpe is telling his defense. And just wondering, like, is this needed? Like, are you really that worried about, like, do the Bombers know your playbook that well that you need to, like, it just seemed odd because I don't remember a time seeing that. I mean, you see the guys like put, the thing in front of their mouth or whatever, so you can't see it on TV, but I mean, that sign was obnoxious. So the night started off weird. There was a bit of an oopsie. You probably heard it when they missed the when they got the single and the cannon went off. So it just felt like an off night, Huss. And it's weird because I don't know how much stock do you put in game one, week one of the regular season. The Bombers look bad, but they can't be that bad, right? Like they just, like, that offense is like too stacked to be that bad. The defense, I mean, I thought some of their guys, I thought Bonds looked all right at corner.
The key area this year is good.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think about that game. And I know Shea pulled a Paul Maurice after the game. He really did, right? He pulled a Paul Maurice after the game.
Hodge just said the same thing.
Of it, yeah, and he took all of the, like, basically all of the blame off the players, and basically said he didn't prepare them well enough. And yeah, fair enough. Like, I mean, I don't think we can really sound any alarm here because it's the Bombers and how good they've been. So we'll see next week, I guess, right? I mean, it's one of those weird games where, like, it was funny because one of the questions that Paul Friesen and Jeff Hamilton were asking O'Shea after the game was, like, you don't normally ask him these questions because they don't normally lose like this, right? Like, why didn't they not bench Collaros? Why wouldn't they just keep Collaros out at the end of the game? Because usually the Bombers are up by enough that there's no reason to risk him. But last night it was almost an extension of preseason, right? Like you're trying to get him some more reps in game action because he got 0, right? So I think there was a bit of a learning lesson, and that's the part that really weirded me out last time. Weird is the wrong word, but just, I don't know if it's not concerning, but it's just like, this is been a long time for Mike O'Shea to be making sort of some of these sort of, I guess you could call them mistakes, right? So I don't know. It was a really weird night, and it was just so out of their character that I'm just not sure what to believe or what to think about it.
And maybe this is weird. I was out afterwards with with some friends, and often we talk a lot of hockey, and these guys are very dialed in the Jets, and I said, I can't help but think, and I hope this is just a complete overreaction to last night. But I kind of got the vibe that I had with the Jets after New Year's in 2019. Now, that was a team that was kind of imploding from within. Yeah. But they had been so good. They went to the conference finals the week before. They'd had that great start to the season. And it was sort of like, okay, when do the playoffs start? And there was an element of, we're so good, we'll just show up and we'll win. And I kind of got the feeling that was what the approach was going in, without the preparation of the club in the preseason and all those things. And then everyone was going like, whoa, wait a second, what's going on? The offense isn't clicking, everything is off. Why is the case? Well, I mean, did you really go in ready to compete against the defending champions that just beat you in the Grey Cup?
Like, did we see some complacency from a team that is thwarted so well against that, right? Like, if you ever have been in a dressing room like this one, you're like, man, these guys, like, they talk about going 1-0 every week. They won those 10 games a few years ago, or in a row, or 9 games in a row. I think it was 10 actually in a row a few years ago, and they were just like, no, like, this means nothing. Mike O'Shea saying that, the stats don't mean shit and all that earlier this week and all those things, right? So like, this team has guarded itself so well in the past against complacency, and the players have often been they are the driving force behind the culture of this team does not allow complacency. And then you saw last night, and just like, you're right, it almost felt like they're just sort of autopilot, right? Get out there. Zach's going to throw a couple nice balls over the shoulder to Nick Dembski. Lawler's going to pick one out of the air. Brady's going to run for 150. And it's just going to be easy. And they came out and showed that it wasn't. And Cody Fajardo, some statements after the game, including calling it a statement game. I don't know how much I read into that after week one, right? We know that the CFL season is long, and again, you don't draw a lot of conclusions after game one. But hey, Cody Fajardo went out there and delivered, right? It looked like the Grey Cup again, except worse for the Bombers. Like, the Bombers at least battled to the bitter end there and lost with 13 seconds left. But I don't know how Tyson Philpott gets as open as he was. That guy literally caught the game-winning touchdown a few months ago in November, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to see a much better Bomber team next week. Like, if history ever, has shown with this Bomber team, when they lose a game, they usually come back out. And I wouldn't be surprised if they just tried to drop 50 on Ottawa next Thursday. But at the same time, you're also going to be answering questions all week as to, has this team is this it, right? Like, has this team run its course and
the week
and
of
all
practice,
that or not? But
the week of practice is going to be fascinating. We'll look forward to yourself and Hammer and everyone that's around there, because this is a bit of a wake-up call. And you mentioned the statement game. The statement from the Bombers is that we weren't ready to start the season. Yeah. The statement from the Montreal Alouettes is, if you thought that our championship last year was a fluke, think again, because we just went into a place that Cody Fajardo had never won as a starting quarterback and laid one on the team that all of you are saying is once again the team to beat, when we just beat them in the championship game. I was really impressed. Jason Moss has always sort of had, I know we've been talking a lot about chips, but a big chip on his shoulder. And I think his team sort of showed that off. I didn't catch whether Marc-Antoine Decoy did a wrestling promo after the game like he did after the Grey Cup. But I'll tell you what, listen, full marks to Montreal, and we'll see how the Bombers manage to turn this around.
Too, with Sean Lemon sacking Zach Collaros in that game, which was like, whatever. It was a complete problem. I guess what's his name too, though? The guy that got injured. The name's escaping me at the moment. But that was a little bit of karma for him too, because he tried to rip Chris Rivers' leg off on that one tackle. Stubblefield, yeah. And then
that was Bush League.
That was Bush League. So was him just kind of flying into the padded goalpost during the safety, which I had no. That safety was a comedy of errors, right? That started with Sergio Castillo missing that kick, and he almost put it short. And then, I don't know. I don't know what the returner was doing. He just completely screwed that up. Then, as he's trying to find the ball, he runs out of the end zone and back into it. Oh man, it just that was funny. Like, I enjoyed that part of the game. The game was enjoyable. I thought. You were waiting the whole time for the Bombers just to click, and when at the end of the second half there, or end of the first half, where they go no huddle for the last couple minutes, and they start moving it down the field, and you're like, oh yeah, this is they're gonna, they're starting to get it, and then they just didn't, right? It was just a weird game, so we'll figure out it over the next week.
I'm glad you brought up. In a lot of ways, if you want last night summed up in 10 seconds, watch the clip of the missed field goal.
Oh my goodness.
And then the cannon going off. Did we miss that the wrong time? It
startled people up in the press box because you don't expect it after a single.
Oh, dude, right? The same thing in the stands.
I'm sure. Yeah,
I will. I'll say this. They only one way to go from here, and that's up. That's usually what this football team does, and they'll have an opportunity to get back to 1-1 against Ottawa next week. As I mentioned, we've got Bones coming up. Really looking forward to this conversation. Yeah. It has been a little quiet right now. What are you hearing anything on the coaching? Because this is like when we heard from Arnie at the beginning of last week, they said that they'd already been talking to a number of individuals. And I'm not, and listen, I realize assistant coaches maybe not as high profile as the head coach. Yeah. So a lot of things probably able to happen more quietly than others. But I would think that maybe next week could be a pretty big week for the organization when it comes to that. Just knowing the draft's coming, you want to get these guys in the fold. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of work to be done as Scott puts together his new staff.
I wouldn't be surprised if something, one shoe falls at least the associate coach, head coach or associate coach.
4 o'clock this afternoon?
Well, I really hope not. Please, come on now. Stop with these dumps on Friday. This is what the government does, not what sports teams should be doing. You don't bury you don't bury good news at the end of a work week. I mean, that's just not that's where you bury the bad news. Don't do it. Anyways, yeah, I'm interested, right? Because the old saying goes, surround yourself with smart people. And I'm curious what that means if the Jets are looking at it. And Arneal sort of spoke about smart guys, veteran guys, young guys. I mean, if let's say is Jay Woodcroft doesn't get a job in the NHL this year, would he come and be an assistant for a year, an associate coach for the year? What about Dean Evison, right? If these guys are getting overlooked for head coaching gigs, I wonder about Todd Reardon, who Arneal worked under in Washington after he got canned in Pittsburgh this year under Mike Sullivan, and that just seems like a new GM sort of thing. I wonder if Todd Reardon, are they looking at him? What about McClellan? He hasn't been hired yet, I don't believe. And I'm wondering if some of these guys who just aren't getting head coaching gigs right now might be looking at that. So I wonder if you bring in a guy like that, at least as the associate coach, which gives you a pretty good kind of bench, I would think, and allows you to kind of have a kind of maybe at least with an Evison or a Woodcroft. Well, I mean, Evanson's not younger, but a Woodcroft, a bit of a younger mind on the game, and what he was able to sort of extract from the Oilers for a few years before whatever happened at the beginning of this year, because this is still, I mean, I'm not saying it's Todd Woodcroft's team, or sorry, Jay Woodcroft's team anymore. But I mean, Jay Woodcroft did a lot of good in Edmonton, I thought, and so did Dean Evison before, almost $15 million in dead cap space, kind of derailed the Minnesota Wild from being able to add good pieces. So I'm curious if one of those guys, and we've heard Dave Axtell's name kicked around too. Again, another former assistant, most recently a head coach in the NHL, if he would be looking to kind of keep his career going as an assistant somewhere. So yeah, we'll see what that means. I mean, I know Nolan Baumgartner's name was thrown around. He's gone to Ottawa now. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think you can take your time, and I think if Arneal would be wise to do it, right? As a head coach again, getting a second chance at doing it.
You want to get the right guys.
Want to get the right interview a lot of guys, right? I think the bigger coaching search here is coming to the assistants, not with. I mean, I think Arneal was sort of the favorite and ended up being the guy. I mean, I think if you're Arneal, you want a guy. I mean, if you think if you're Pierre Laviolette or Lindy Ruff or all those guys that hired him, right? You would probably want to get a smart guy like he thinks he is, working alongside you, right? You want to give yourself the best position as a head coach to be a good head coach, right? To make a name for yourself, to take your second chance and run with it. So I'd be curious because I don't think those guys would be here for long. Like if they went for a guy like Woodcroft or an Evison or whatever, because I think eventually guys get canned during the year after next year or whatever, right? And
they come in, have a great contribution, and it increases their
take
stock.
The Jets to the next level, right?
Maybe they're all sitting around waiting to see if they're getting the San Jose job, which has been vacant for a long time.
Forever,
we haven't heard much. That's the one loan availability. Hey, quickly before we go, who you got in the Cup Final?
Well, it's a really good question. I mean, I think this is Florida's time. I think it's Florida's time, right? I mean, so. This is the thing. Florida was there last year, lost. Now they come back again. You have all that experience. That often serves guys well, serves teams well when they do that, right? You give your second kick at the can. You're a better team than you were the previous year. You've kind of fine-tuned it. You know what that experience is going to be like. Edmonton's a surprising team, Huss. in the first round of the playoffs, I was like, yeah, this team seems like, but they've just gotten better defensively, right? Goaltending has come back to them with Stuart Skinner. They obviously have McDavid and Draisaitl. Evander Kane, I don't know if they've said if he's playing or not yet.
They need him to play.
There.
There's going to be a lot of nasty in this series.
Right? Exactly.
They need him to be engaged. They need him to be up to the challenge.
I think it's weird. There's a lot of people around here that don't like Evander Kane, but he's an impactful player, and we've seen it in these playoffs. Right? He can take the edge out of another team, and he can be that edge. Right? And so I'm interested to see that. But I think it's Florida's time. Right? Like I think if for Paul Maurice, it's Paul Maurice's time. Like this guy, this will be his third Stanley Cup Final, if I'm not mistaken. As he said today, I think it was, it'd be nice to win one finally. Yeah, I'm sure it would. And I think for a guy who's been in the league 30 years, more than that now, it'd be well deserved for him. And you'd like to see McDavid win one. I think just as for hockey, right? Like having your best player hoist the Stanley Cup, like we've seen it with Crosby, we've seen it with McKinnon, we've seen it, obviously going back to the Gretzky's and Lemieux and all those guys. I mean, that's a big thing as well. I think it's good for the league. But I mean, I think if you're just if you're a neutral coming into this, I think just Florida's the better team at this given time, and we'll see if that plays out over a potential 7-game series here.
Yeah, to me, it comes down to. I mean, I think Edmonton certainly can win.
Sure.
But Stuart Skinner is going to have to be the best goalie in the series, like he was, which was somewhat surprising, going up against Ottinger and the Dallas Stars. It gets going tomorrow.
Hey, one question for you, Huss. Do you think Paul Maurice retires if he wins the Cup? Do you think that's it for him in Florida if he wins the Cup? Like, do you think he just walks away?
No.
I mean, he's just like that. No, you think he just keeps going because he just loves it too much?
You think he's still. I mean, he still is in great shape. He's got a lot of energy.
Yeah.
I think he maybe comes back for a victory lap or two, but
Sure, okay. Yeah.
I think it does probably change, his outlook on the rest of his career if he finally gets to the top of the mountain. Listen, you know what we need?
Yeah.
We need him to win it and say, yeah, I'm done, and then have Maurice and Bones together on a panel. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, that would be a dream.
It should just be a Manning cast sort
dream
of thing,
for hockey
right?
fans. Yeah, Bones and Maurice crushing beers. Watching the game.
Beers and unfiltered.
Yes.
Unfiltered, right?
Like pay-per-view, sign me up, take my credit card right now for that. Hey, have a great weekend. Thanks for doing this. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, see you next week, guys.
All right, there's Scott Billeck. You know what? Hey, while we're talking Cup Final, before we pivot to Rick Bowness, let's get to a final Stanley Cup why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. We talked about this earlier on. I know there's been a lot of people on the fence. Now is your time to put it in the chat. Who you got to win the Stanley Cup? The series starts tomorrow. Oilers or Panthers. Maybe we'll throw even a poll up, but let us know what you're thinking. And you can always go back to the YouTube channel and go, see, I picked insert team here, and tell all your friends that you're right before this series started. We do have Bones coming up, and hey, we give a big cheers to Bones for jumping on with us. And hey, it's Friday, as Hacksaw says, Beer Friday. Let's raise a glass to the weekend. Today's show is brought to you in part by Generic Lager, your basic lager, just better. Little Brown Jug made the taste you crave with the name that says it all with this impressively standard lager. Whether you're at a Jets game or watching from home, grab a cold one and cheers. You can grab it at Little Brown Jug in the Exchange District at 335 William, your local LC or vendor. And now available, of course, at Canada Life Centre and at the ballpark. We'll be having a few of those on June 18th. I had a few at the game earlier this week. And yes, Goldeyes on the road this weekend. And we are less than 6 tickets remaining. So if you haven't already got your seats for our Goldeyes patio party with WST, June 18th. Do not wait. Link in the description. Go to the website, winnipegsportstalk.com. Click the Goldeyes link and get one of the last few tickets. And we were really looking forward to seeing all of you there on June 18th for what should be an awesome night with Winnipeg Sports Talk at the brand new patio, bar-style tables and chairs for everybody down the first baseline right by our favorite craft beer corner. And hey, while we're talking about beers, it's beautiful. We're finally getting a real nice weekend coming up It is a perfect time, if you haven't already gotten down, to check out the beer can to make your move to Winnipeg's biggest and best outdoor beer garden, bar and restaurant, connected to the Granite at One Granite Way, just off of the Osborne Bridge. The best selection of local beers from all across Winnipeg, including our faves at Little Brown Jug, and incredible food, too, from the dudes from Hoagie Boys and Cosmos. Golden Gal Burger, highly recommend. Chips and queso, all sorts of great stuff. Listen, there's no better place to take advantage of the gorgeous weather than the beer can. And make sure to follow them on Twitter as well, at the Beer Can WPG, for all the latest programming, DJs, and events, and more. And just before we get to Rick Bowness, got to thank our friends at Royal Sports. Gang, if you're getting ready to do things outside this weekend, get down to Royal. Soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, running, bikes. They've got it all. Big Yeti section as well if you're going camping over in the King's Skate, Snow, and Surf side. And the best in licensed merchandise from all around professional sports, including international soccer. They've even got the new Fanatic Stanley Cup hats as well. If you're an Oiler fan, want to get something to commemorate the trip to the Cup. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, we will do marbles coming up around the top of the hour. Pay attention to the chat around 2:45. We will open up marbles registration. But right now, we have waited for this guest for a long time. An absolute pleasure to welcome in the former head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, Rick Bowness, to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Rick, it is so great to have you on the show. Thanks for doing this. How are you feeling?
Doing great, thanks. We've been in Florida for a while, relaxing down there. We had to come to Toronto, obviously, for a couple of days to work with Sportsnet, which I enjoyed very much. Right now, we're in Ottawa visiting our son Ryan and his family. Our grandson turns 4 today, so we had to be here for the big party.
That is fantastic. Has it sunk in yet that you've retired from coaching?
Yeah, I just retired from coaching. I haven't retired from life, and I'd still love to stay involved in the game in some capacity, but it's just the coaching that I've retired from. We're in no hurry to make any decisions what we do next. We're going to take the summer and figure it all out. But, yeah, it's just the coaching that I've retired from, and we'll see what happens next.
Rick, you made such an impact here in Winnipeg for the couple of years that you went behind the bench, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But I have to ask you, how long had you been thinking about maybe making this decision at the end of the year? And was it a difficult one for you?
Oh, it's very difficult. Listen, coaching is all I know. It's all I've done for the last 40 years. I know I've been blessed and fortunate to be able to coach in the league for as long as I did. But yeah, so it's a tough decision. And people are saying, like, well, what are you going to miss the most? Man, I'm going to miss all of it. I just love the coaching. I love the practices. I love working with the players. I love the games and everything else. So I am going to miss all of it. And it's been my life for so long. It's all I know. Not smart enough to do anything else. So we got into the coaching and just love it. And I still have the passion for it, but I do know it's time. I didn't like the energy level I had at the end of the year. So it's kind of, it's something that was coming to me that, okay, maybe it's time. And I didn't like how we played in the playoffs. And the first person I'd look when we played like that is me. So I wasn't happy with the job I had done. And it just came to me like it wasn't something I was planning for a couple of months at all. Because I'm the same as the players, man. You're all in. It's every day. You've got to be all in. You can't have one foot out the door. So, but it came to me at the end there that, okay, maybe it's time.
Rick, now that you've had a little bit of time removed from the playoffs and stepping down, how will you look back at those 2 years, finishing off your coaching career as head coach, back where a lot of your pro journey started, right here in the Peg?
Well, it started. I mean, I went there in 1980 as a player, and I went there in November of 83 as an assistant coach when they fired Tommy Watt and they named Barry Long. So it's great that we finished there, but when you look back at the 2 years, I think you have to go. Like we had a big challenge in front of us when we went there. We did. The players were complaining about playing there, and they had missed the playoffs. So listen, the coaching staff with Scotty and Brad and Marty and Wade, we had a big challenge ahead of us, but we did it, and we had to change the culture of that whole team and that whole organization, and we've done that. We had to give them a better style of play that would be conducive to the talent that was there, to have a better chance of success. Now we did that. Now we had our moments 2 years ago in 23 at the end that we weren't happy with. But you look at this year and in the past year, if our specialty teams had been average, we probably would have won the President's Trophy. We were that close to it, and we had a great finish to the season with eight straight wins, and none of us were happy with the playoffs. Now, here's the big difference for me this year and last year. Last year, at the end of the year, after my little tirade, all the players were complaining about what I said, and which was good. That didn't bother me one bit. Something had to be said. Everyone saw what I saw. Let's address it. Let's get it out there in the open. And the biggest difference is this year when we lost in the playoffs, the players were all looking at themselves. They weren't looking at anyone else other than themselves. So that's a big positive in itself. They all said the same things. We didn't play well enough. We all have to come back with a 5% better attitude, better commitment, anything that will make them a little bit better. So 2 years ago, it was a distraction. None of them took accountability for the way you played. This year, they all did. So that's a big positive in itself. And I think that is a big positive step going into next year. Now, again, none of us were happy with the way we played in the playoffs. None of us. But I'm glad the players came right out and said, yeah, we all have to be better. It wasn't anyone else's fault this time around. There wasn't anything other than, okay, every player said, I got to be better. So that is a huge positive in itself, and I know it's going to carry into next year. So to answer your question, over 2 years, the team's in a much better spot now than when we came in, and I know there's more here.
Rick, you mentioned the end of the previous year's playoffs and the very memorable post-gamer that you gave all of us. I'll be honest, you're exactly right. I mean, everybody saw it, and I think it resonated incredibly well with the fan base. What was the process like to, let things settle and then get everyone back together? Because it certainly did seem like there was no hangover from that when everything got going this previous season.
No, and the mistake people make is thinking I was reacting to that game, which wasn't true at all. We weren't very good for the February and into March, and we had to scramble to get in. And when we got into the playoffs, we played well in game one. Game two, we didn't play well, but we're going back to Winnipeg 1-1. We're happy with that. All of a sudden in game three, we're down 4-1. Now, why are we down 4-1 at home? And we fought back to tie it up. We lost in double in overtime. And then but game four, we had to win that game. We're down 3-1 again. And then when we get into game five, we didn't have a scoring chance. We were down 1-0 2 minutes into the game, and we didn't have a scoring chance until we pulled the goalie. So that whole thing was just something had to be said. I didn't want the players leaving the season. Oh, wow, we made the playoffs. Isn't that great? It wasn't great. Maybe if we had competed and battled and everything else for every game, that was one thing. We didn't. So that's why we had to address it then. And again, it was something that everyone saw. It wasn't something I was making up. We all saw it, so it had to be dealt with. Now, that being said, I had to follow up with that in a lot of phone conversations with the players over the summer, so it wasn't lingering going into training camp. So all the conversations I had with the players, the majority of them have said, you know what, we didn't like it, but you were right. So all that was smoothed over the course of the summer, and which had to happen. And I had to follow it up with individual phone calls, which was fine. I wanted to know where they felt. I wanted to know what they were thinking, and I got it out. We addressed it, and we moved. Everyone moved on. We went into training camp with a totally different attitude, and it carried throughout the season.
Rick, you've been pretty clear that communication is a huge part of doing the job, and you just kind of mentioned that level of communication. Has that changed significantly as players have changed over the years? Would that sort of contact have happened 30 years ago with a head coach and a bunch of players in the offseason?
All depends who the head coach was. So, right? So most of them know. For me, yes. Because listen, when I coached the Bruins in 91, 92, they were used to the old school and hard tactics and everything else. And I went in there with a totally different attitude and communicated with the players. And they didn't like that. Probably cost me my job, which was fine. I was going to do it my way. But I always said this, when I got into coaching, man, I was going to coach and do it my way, and I was going to have open communication with the players. So to answer your question, most coaches know, absolutely not 30 years ago, but that's the way I've always taught. I've always had open communication with the players. Now you're having conversations with players. They don't like what they're hearing. That's fine. As a player, all I ever wanted to know, coach, tell me where I stand. What do I need to do on? So now I always felt that was so important with every player, that build that communication, build that trust, build that line of talk between each and every player. So I've always done that. And today, to answer your question, it's more so important today because these kids today, they need to know that you have their best interests at heart. You have to build a trust one-on-one with your players today. And listen, Scotty O'Neill's the same way as, and he's going to keep doing what we've been doing, and that's that open communication. But again, these players today, you have to have that communication. They want to know why. So this is what we're doing. Okay, what's the next play after that? And you have to be able to explain it. And the players have to know that you have their best interests at heart, and you have to build that trust with each and every player.
Rick Bowness with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Rick, you mentioned Scotty, that of course Scott O'Neill. He joined us last week after getting the job. What can you tell our fans and listeners about your relationship with Scott, what you learned about him, and your thoughts on him moving this thing forward, and of course being a part of the turnaround on your watch?
Well, listen, Scott and I have known each other since '81 when we drafted him and Dale that year. I was a borderline player up and down, and then when I was coaching, when I came here in November of '83 as the assistant coach, I worked with him a lot. And we've over the years, and I hadn't brought him into Boston when I was there. We've always had a good relationship. We always kept in touch. And listen, when I took that job in Winnipeg, the first person I wanted on there, and management felt the same way. We want Scotty O'Neill in there. So we were all on the same page. There's no question I wanted Scotty in there. Scott was a huge help in everything I talked to you about earlier about changing the culture, changing the style of play, giving them a better game plan. Scott was a huge part of it. And that's why it's important that he take over, because he knows what we need to do in Winnipeg to take it to the next step. He knows the players now. He's had 2 years of working with them. He knows the style of play we have to play to be successful. He's going to carry that on, and he's going to make some adjustments to make that team better. So hopefully they'll have a lot more success in the playoffs. But he is, without a doubt, ready for the job. He's ready for the challenge. He is the absolute right person to take over when I left.
Rick, they're going through a search right now for a couple of other assistant coaches. And I think, whether it be the media, the fan base, we always just focus on the head coach. How important are the roles of the assistant coaches and the relationship between the head coach and the guys on the staff?
Huge. You've got to have it. And listen, I was an assistant coach for a long time in this league. So when I took over as head coach, both in Dallas and here, I wanted my assistant coaches to have a lot of say. And because they want to feel that their voice is heard, whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. They have to have a voice, and they have to feel part of it. So I had an open communication with all the assistant coaches. They were wonderful. Scott will be the same way. So, and the other thing is now Scott's getting a lot of calls from a lot of good coaches. Winnipeg is now a destination that coaches want to go to. It's a great organization with fantastic ownership in Mark Chipman, great management led by Chevy. It's a good place to play. It's a good place to coach. So when Scott's telling me the names of the coaches that are calling looking for jobs, it tells you that Winnipeg now is a destination of choice, that they want to go there. And I love hearing that about the Jets, because listen, the whole time I was with the Jets in the 80s, 9 years, everyone loved playing in Winnipeg. We want that back. I think we've got it back right now. And it's important that, I know Scott will hire the right guys, but it's so important that those guys want to come to Winnipeg, and they do. And that shows how much that franchise has turned around over the last couple of years. And I love hearing the guys who are really good, well-respected coach in this league, they want to come coach the Winnipeg Jets and work with Scott. And I love hearing that.
A big part of that, I'm sure, is also the men on the team. And Adam Lowry's the captain. I did want to ask you about take us back to the decision-making process in making Adam a captain and what you saw maybe behind the scenes that fans wouldn't have of how he grew into that role and, how important he was to the success of the team in a leadership role.
Well, the fans see the presence that he has on the ice and the first guy to stick up for his teammates. Well, that presence is felt in the locker room behind closed doors. And he had a ton of respect from his teammates simply because of the fact anything happens on the ice, he's the first guy to respond. So they had a ton of respect for him going into it. And listen, Josh Morrissey, great candidate. Mark Scheifele, great candidate. Like we had a couple of guys, because that whole culture in that room changed, everyone had a voice. And that was important that we had to create that atmosphere. So there's a lot of great candidates that could have taken over the captaincy without a doubt. We felt Adam was the right guy because of that presence he has on the ice and his compete level every shift, every game, and that presence that he had in the locker room. A ton of respect. You closed the doors. Players had nothing but a total respect for Adam. He was without a doubt the right guy, and it was a tough call. It wasn't an easy call because of Josh and Mark and these couple other guys, but it was in our mind, it was the right call.
Rick, you just mentioned Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey. I wanted to quickly ask you on those two. I mean, listen, we know how important Mark is. A couple of years ago when you came in, I don't think a lot of people were confident that Mark would be here for the long term. He signed the contract and really seemed like a different player in both ends. Talk about the buy-in, getting Mark to get to that point and how important that was in the overall success of the team. And what would a player that does like that in his role, how that affects the rest of the squad?
Well, just look at his plus minus the last 2 years. 2 years ago, he was minus 18.
Night and day.
Right, night and day. Now this year's a plus. And don't forget, those guys are all on the ice for 15 or 14 or 15, I forget the exact number, empty net goals against, right? And that always counts as a minus. But you saw Mark compete at both ends of the ice. Back checking, it was harder. He was better defensively in our zone, far more committed. Like we talked about earlier, you're all in or you're not. And he was all in. And so the fact that he wanted to sign and stand in Winnipeg, fantastic for the franchise, fantastic for the fans. Every team needs that franchise forward, and certainly Mark, listen, he's the guy. He's the best forward on the team, and he's going to lead that team for a long time at both ends of the ice. With Josh Morrissey, every team needs that elite defenseman, and Mo gave us that. Listen, his offensive upside is huge. I think he's still going to keep getting better. Plays against the best players every night. So if you want to win the Stanley Cup, you got to have the cornerstone up front and the back end, and the Jets have that. And those guys are all in to the Jets, the franchise, the way they want to play. Those two guys are all in, and it's great to see. And I think they both have some better years ahead of them yet.
Well, and Morrissey, I mean, listen, you said when you came to Winnipeg that, you had always targeted on Morrissey and said that you thought he could be a top 10 player. I think to a lot of people, it seemed like he had this incredible improvement. Was that just you getting a little bit more out of Josh, putting him in more positions to succeed, or him feeding off maybe the message he was getting from the coaching staff and taking his game to another level?
Yeah, I don't think it was the minutes because he always played important minutes. He played against the best. He played power play. I think the message to him was when I called him and I told him at that point, first conversation we had was, if you're not in the top 10 voting for the Norris Trophy, first of all, I'm disappointed in me because I didn't push you hard enough. Second of all, I'd be disappointed in you. And he loved that challenge. Listen, we know how elite the player this guy is, and his character is outstanding. His commitment to the team is outstanding. But I think he took that upon himself and said, okay, I can do that. And he loved that challenge, and he responded to that challenge. And he's going to keep getting, there's another gear here. And I think he's just going to keep getting better the more he feels comfortable with the important minutes he plays, the role he plays. The power play is going to be better next year. It has to be. So he'll get more points out of that. So it'll drive him up into the point standing. But again, he was second or third in plus minus in those top 15, 20 defensemen. And that is huge. It goes back to being committed, keep that puck out of our zone, work with offense, some good team defense. And he's a perfect example of that.
Rick, when you look back at your time as the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, what will you remember about coaching and having Connor Hellebuck as your goaltender when it comes to the play on the ice? And what will you remember about Connor, the individual, when you look back? Goalies are a little bit of a different breed, but he's such a unique player and obviously was the cornerstone of a lot of the success that your team had.
Yeah, listen, I love the guy. I just love his compete. I love his ability to win hockey games. But listen, there's not a coach in this league, there's not an elite team in this league that doesn't have outstanding goaltending. If you have average goaltending in our league, that means you have inconsistent goaltending, and you're not going to make the playoffs. 8 teams have to lose, 8 teams get in. That's a tough challenge. You have to have outstanding goaltending. Bucky is listen, I've been fortunate over the last, 15, 20 years of my career. Vasilevsky and Bishop in Tampa. We had Bishop in Dallas, Luongo in Vancouver. You need great goaltending. Bucky gives that organization that. Yeah, they're all a little quirky, but that's great. I love what he brings. This man he works his butt off every day, and he's ready to play. His level of consistency is unmatched in this league. I'm hoping he should win that Vezina. He certainly deserves it. But again, you want to win in this league, it all starts with your goaltending first and foremost. And Connor gives that a franchise great goaltending every game.
Rick, take us behind the curtain. I mean, as opposed to dealing with the skaters, if you will, how are dealing with the goaltender? How is it different? Do you spend less time talking to Connor, or do you spend more time talking to him? I mean, what's it like coaching a player like that, knowing that there's also Wade Flaherty, the goalie coach, that's working on details?
Well, that's right. I stay out of it. I stay out of it.
Listen, how you doing?
Yeah, exactly. How's everything going today? Good. Family's good? Okay, good. Be ready to go. Wade Flaherty does a fantastic job with the goalies, and his job is to look after those guys. I don't know anything about goaltending. The job description is stop the puck. That's about all I know about it. So I let Wade do it all, and he tells me not only the routine, but the practice schedule, the game schedule. I leave that entirely up to Flats. I have full confidence in Flats. He's a wonderful goalie coach. He's a wonderful person. So he's the right guy to work with Connor. And I just kind of stay out of their way. Man, you need me to do something, that's fine. Just tell me when you want to play him. Tell me when you want to rest him. And you got to work with your goaltenders. You got to work with your goalie coach. He's hired to do that job, and it's a tough job. Let him do it.
And for obvious reasons, we focus a lot on Connor Hellebuyck, but just a quick couple of words on the contribution of Laurent Brossoit and what he did in that situation. I mean, he came in, and there was a very good possibility that Hellebuyck might not have been here, and he would have been the starter. Hellebuyck signs an 8-year deal, and it seemed like every single time you tapped him on the shoulder, he was there for the club, and I think has earned himself a much bigger opportunity, I think, hopefully for him in the NHL next year.
Listen, he was fantastic. You got to remember, you go back to October, like both of them struggled a little early in a couple of those games. They both did. And then you go back to Flats and the wonderful job he did turning them both around. But Laurent Brossoit was just outstanding for us. And listen, there's another true pro, worked his butt off every day. He was ready to play. He won games again, just like Connor did for us. LB won games for us. He was outstanding. And just another great character guy. Flats, again, to give him credit for handling him and dealing with him. And it allowed us, Connor played 4 less games this year than last year, which was the plan, get him into 58, 60 games. And we did cut back on his workload, cut back on the practice schedule. But LB was ready to go. Whenever he was named in the goalie, he was ready to go. And our players had just as much faith in him as they do in Bucky. So that was a wonderful combination. I don't know what LB happens to him next. Whatever he gets, he's earned and he deserves.
Rick Bowness with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Rick, has been so much fun listening. As people listen to you talk with us here, as we did for the last couple of years every day when you'd meet the media here in Winnipeg. You're so great behind a microphone. Tell us about the opportunity to get on television. How did it go for you? And what did you take away from it? And might we see more of Bones on Hockey Night in Canada or Sportsnet?
They called me after this. Would you be interested? And not right away. I said, give me a couple of days. I need a break here. But then, it was kind of intrigued me. So I did the 3 games, and it was fun. Listen, I've been working with Ron. I've known Ron for a long time. Had Coach Kevin Bieksy, and I've always had a great rapport. I've known Kelly Rudy forever, and Luke was outstanding as well. So I was fortunate to go on to that panel with true pros, and they helped me a lot. But I certainly enjoyed it. The opportunity to do more games was there. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get it done. There's an opportunity possibly for me down the road, but that's something we'll look at again during the course of summer. But I really enjoyed it, and the opportunity was to do more was there and is there for me. So is that something that we'll look at down the road? Probably. But again, right now we're just taking our time, reviewing, taking a look at all our options. And again, I've retired from coaching, haven't retired from life, still want to be around.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, a format where you could get into more of your incredible hockey stories and just history, I think would be something that would be a win for everybody in the game. Rick, if I could, I have to ask you about listen, you have so much history here in Winnipeg, but it is about a game here in Winnipeg where, in fact, you were not part of the home team, you were part of the visitors. November 5th, 1993, Friday night, the old Winnipeg Arena, your Ottawa Senators came in and beat the Winnipeg Jets 7-6, coming back from 6-3 down in the third period. Do you remember that game, forever known in Winnipeg as the infamous peanut butter game?
Listen, we didn't win very many games those years in Ottawa, so the wins were easy to remember. But I do remember at the end of that game, it was probably 4 or 5 minutes down and to go. We were down a couple, and we pulled the goalie, and we scored. And then we pulled the goalie again, and we scored. So, yeah, and we found a way to win that game. But again, we didn't win very often, so the wins are easy to remember. But I do remember being down, and I remember the guys battling back. And you don't win a whole lot of games when you pull your goalie, right? You don't. And we were fortunate to win that game after we had pulled the goalie a couple of times. So yeah, I remember that. And listen, I always loved playing in the Winnipeg Arena, both home and visitors. Always a tremendous atmosphere there because of the fantastic passion and following of the Winnipeg Jet fans.
Well, and what, if people weren't around at that time, what was noteworthy about that game, the Jets blew the 6. I think Bob Kudelski had a hat trick, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had the winner. But they had given out half-liter jars of peanut butter at the beginning of the game. Trust me, this was the last time that ever happened in Winnipeg. And at the end of that game, it started raining jars of peanut butter. And I believe, if I recall correctly, you guys had to walk sort of across the ice. And, the Sens players were going in there, but there were some legit projectiles coming on the ice. Not something that you see very often. Certainly not today, Rick.
No, you don't. Yeah, we had to duck a little bit, but that was okay. We listen. The guys were so happy to get a win, man. We would have walked through bombs just to get that win. Because, again, man, we have like 10, 11 wins. Even wasn't a whole lot better the next year. So we enjoyed it. We had to dodge a little bit to get through it, but that was secondary to the excitement of the win.
Rick, I can't thank you enough for jumping on with this. Just on the way out, I mean, listen, I can tell you from doing this for 10 years at TSN, for 4 years here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, that there was a very special connection between the fan base and you. I mean, you, in a lot of ways, I think maybe because of your roots, the sort of person you are, it really felt like you were one of us here in Winnipeg. I mean, moving back to Halifax, where your home is, and obviously going on a different path in life, how would you describe your connection with the city of Winnipeg and the people that, supported you so well, both as a player and obviously as a head coach?
Listen, we always tell everybody, especially the people when we go home for the summer, how much we loved our time in Winnipeg. The 9 years I worked for the Jets organization, I was down in Moncton coaching and everything, but I always took great pride in working for the Jet organization because I always knew the fans of Winnipeg took great pride in that franchise. Our daughter, Kristen, was born in Winnipeg. We had some great years as assistant coach there. I know the year I played there, we weren't very good, but man, we always had a great following. And I've always said this about Winnipeg. You drive around and every second license plate has a Winnipeg Jet logo. I just love that. I've always loved the following of the Jet fans, the passionate following. They're knowledgeable hockey fans. You're not going to BS them. You're not going to pull wool over their eyes. They know what they're seeing, and because of their knowledge of the game and their passion for the franchise. But nothing but great memories. And anyone ever asks us, what's it like living and playing in Winnipeg? Judy and I we love it. We loved all our years in Winnipeg. We loved every day there. And again, it's because of the fan base. It's a great city. That friendly Manitoba, it's accurate, man. We just loved it there.
Well, the city's going to miss you. All the best to you and Judy and the entire family. Have a great time at the birthday party today. And listen, Rick, we wish you nothing but the best and hope that we'll have a chance to hear more from you in the future. And listen, if you're ever dying to talk some hockey, we've always got a spot with you here in the Winnipeg back on WST.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. And yeah, I'll be around. Don't lose my number. We'll be here.
Thanks so much, Rick.
Thank you.
How about that? How good? Bones, Rick Bowness. That was so much fun having him on the program today. We've been working on that for a while. Shout out to our pal Scott Brown for helping us set that up. And as I say, I've been watching the chat throughout the entire, exactly. Bones in the chat for the big guy, folks. Heck of a lot of fun to have him on, and just cannot wish him, Judy, the entire Bonus clan, the best moving forward. And hopefully we'll be able to do that again sometime, because I think it's quite clear. I mean, talk to him for hours about the state of the game today and some pretty amazing hockey stories. And yes, he was on the visiting bench on the infamous peanut butter game back in 1993. All right, last call for marbles. It is Friday. By the way, let's get some likes. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up, folks. Let's get that over. Let's try. If you're in the marble race, you got to be subscribed to win the hoodie, and do us a solid. Hit that like button. Cup final begins tomorrow. The final for the Why Not question of the day was about 61% for the Panthers. Whether you're going for the Panthers or you're going for the Oilers, the place to be tomorrow night is your local Boston Pizza, where fans come together to cheer on their team and, of course, enjoyed that Boston Pizza playoff menu. Wing flights, the Sicilian square footer pizza, jalapeno popper dip, and a few ice-cold schooners as well mixed in. Obviously, the game will be on with big sound, some prizes to be won at your local Boston Pizza as well. And if you are staying at home tonight or any night, you can always get it hot and fast to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. No racing picks today for myself and Reem, but we'll be back at it going head-to-head with our handicapping for Assiniboia Downs on Monday. We are into the summer part of the schedule, and from now until Labor Day, every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, it's time for live racing at Assiniboia Downs. 7:30 things get underway. Highly recommend at some point getting into the clubhouse for that incredible prime rib buffet. You can make a reservation by hitting them up at 885-3000. And you can also find out more information on everything going on. A lot of great weekend events like the Rib Fest last week. That's all there for you at Assiniboia Downs. And, well, Remo, you can close marbles. And I will do a quick Breezy Bend golf report, because we got a heck of a tournament right now and an amazing leaderboard at the Memorial presented by Workday. Guess who's in first? Does the name Scotty Scheffler ring a bell? Yeah, that's right. He was 5 under yesterday, 3 under on his front 9, and the world number 1 has a 2-shot lead over Canadian Adam Hadwin, who was even par today but had a brilliant 6 under par yesterday. Christian Bezaden, who was 5 under today after being even yesterday, he's in third. At fourth, we've got Ludwig Oberg, and then a group at 3 under par, including my guy Tony Finau, 3 under for his round today after being even yesterday, and Rory McIlroy, who was 1 under. Victor Hovland and Xander Schauffele are even so far. Actually, Xander, I guess, is 1 over, but they're at 3 under as well, just getting into the back 9. Tommy Fleetwood, Sepp Straka, Colin Morikawa at 2 under. Other Canadians in the field include Corey Connors, who followed up a great 4 under round yesterday with a 4 over round today. He's even par, but that still gets him in the top 25. And our cool bet guy, Adam Svensson, he's even as well. And Taylor Pendrith is 1 over. They'll all be playing the weekend. U.S. Open next week. We'll be all over it here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And a huge shout out to Breezy Bend for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. If you want more information on maybe making Breezy one of Manitoba's top private courses, your long-term golfing home for you and your family, give the clubhouse a call. Talk to our pal Corey Johnson. And you can also find out more on wedding rentals and everything going on at Breezy at their website at breezybend.ca. Man, that was a lot of fun with Bones, Reem.
Yeah, it was so nice that he'd be able to join you. Come on. Hockey was great on TV, and I wonder what's in store for him next season. So shout out to Rick Bowness for coming on. That was awesome. Well done, Huss.
Yeah, and then listen, everyone loved it in the chat. I knew they would. I just wanted to make sure everything was fully a go. We were going to hook up with him this morning and get it ready for today's show. So that's why I said we've got a very special guest coming up, but I didn't want to promise it and not deliver it because I knew you guys would never let us down. Anyways, thanks again to Rick Bowness for jumping on. All right, Remo, while you get the marble track ready, let me take a quick look at the Coolbet lines for today. We've got 3 more CFL games to get to after the disappointment of the Bomber home opener last night. But let's start off with the Cup Final tomorrow. Panthers minus 140 in Game 1. The Oilers plus 119 in Game 1. And as far as the series, I think we've got the best number on the Oilers we've had all week long, plus 120 for the Edmonton Oilers. And listen, I'll point this out, and I know Pat was on yesterday. Every weekend, you've got one 20% multiplier that you can use on either the Stanley Cup or the NBA playoffs. So if you actually want to use the multiplier on an Oilers series bet, you can take that plus 120. It ends up basically being plus 144. A $100 bet that if you had made it on a plus 120 would pay back 220. If you use the multiplier, it pays back 244. So use that one wisely. And of course, you've also got the opportunity for a 20% win bonus every weekend on the Canadian Football League. 3 games in the CFL. Very close to a pick'em in these first 2. The Ticats, a 1-point favorite in Calgary against the Stamps, minus 111 on the money line. Stamps minus 102. Tomorrow's Riders-Elks game has the Elks 1-point favorites. They're minus 120 on the money line. And plus even money for the Riders at plus 100. BC still a 5-point favorite in Toronto and minus 250. And if you head over to the Coolbet exclusives, Patty and I, actually Dusty and I put together, we were up. I had Montreal plus 7 yesterday. He was on the Bombers to cover. So I'm 1-0, but we like Hamilton to win. We like Edmonton to win and BC to win. That on its own, if you're putting in yourself, was plus 374. Patty and the guys gave us a nice boost. It's up at plus 425 right now for the Lock Shop Partner Parlay. You got to get that in, though, before things start. And again, I should mention, we said this yesterday on the program, but if you are playing at Coolbet, anytime you put $10 on a CFL game or $5 on 2 games, take a screenshot of your bet and email it to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com. We will be selecting one qualifier a week for the next 9 or 10 weeks until the second week in August. And at that point, all of our qualifiers will be in a special marble race. And the winner of that marble race will receive 2 seats on the Huss Bus, the Crew Labor Day Classic trip, where you'll receive 2 nights hotel, transportation to and from Regina, tickets to the Labor Day game, and some other goodies from Coolbet and our friends that are putting it all on. So would love to see you go with us. We've had such great support from Coolbet, who are, of course, also sponsoring our week in Vegas for the draft. If you haven't already played a Coolbet and you do, get on over there. Use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And any CFL bets that you want to screen cap and send to us, we'll put you in to qualify for that marble race to join me and the Crew in Regina for Labor Day, courtesy of Coolbet. All right, Remo, let's do it. It's gorgeous outside. The weather's finally turning around. It looks like it's going to be a nice weekend, but it's not the weekend until the marbles are dropped on WST. What are we cooking today?
Dude, just want me to hit the music here?
Yeah, let's do it. Little Tristan Rivers music to get going.
Hey,
Oh, yeah, the original from Tristan. Haven't heard that one in a while. The song that started it all before all the other versions for the TOC last year. Remo, how many marbles we got today?
We have 208 marbles. A lot of people want me to put in a marble for chipped balls. A lot of chip ball talk.
No, put
today.
one for Sergio. He's been through a lot this week. He had that incredible visit with Ed Tate on the huddle. And then it's an emotional support marble after a tough night. He's still pissed off about those chipped balls. Did you put in a Hustler all caps?
Oh, I saw you were in chat as Andrew Paterson.
I did. I didn't know. I did that as a backup. I didn't know. I have to have one, whatever the official marble is. Okay, you know what? Today we'll just use mine. So, Shorn, if you're watching, it's not Hustler today. It's my actual name, Andrew Paterson. I do have a marble. I should have a marble because I did enter like everybody else. Where are we going today?
The game's launching. It's for some reason it's not going. I did pick a track though. It was called World Record Tango. I tested it out.
Tango,
it was good.
New marble race. By the way, if you haven't already, folks, now's the time. Hit that thumbs up button.
Let's get it over 200. Speaking of that, I mean, we're closing in on 11,500 YouTube subs. Help us get there. Below. We're also on other social medias. Instagram us. I've been grinding really hard to get 5,000 Instagram followers.
Yes.
So help us out there. I just want that 5 in front of it.
Yeah, and listen, we do often sometimes use the WST Instagram to do some contests when we've got some ticket giveaways. Of course, those of you that are subscribed to the newsletter will usually get the first crack, or we'll let people know that is happening. But definitely stay up to it. And Connor's doing some great graphics as well weekly. So, you know, the latest little tidbits from the Winnipeg sports scene, always up there at the WST Instagram. One other thing, if you popped in maybe a little late for Bones and for Marbles, we've got just a handful of tickets, less than 6 available left for the Gold-Eye game. So if you've been waiting, don't wait any longer. Because of the new patio, we have a limited number of tickets that we can sell, and they're just about all gone. So get into winnipegsportstalk.com, click on the Gold-Eye link, click on the link in the description right here in YouTube if you're there, and grab your tickets. Everyone is also going to receive a Winnipeg Sports Talk Cool Bet koozie. It should be there by then. So we are all set up, looking forward to it, and hopefully we'll get a day like today for the baseball game. I was out. Shout out to Mike Wynn. I know he's here we took in the game on Monday. Absolutely beautiful day. Another big win for the Gold Eyes. They're playing well lately. So June 18th. June 18th is going to be a great week for us. We got the ball game with WST on Tuesday, and then Bombers Lions, the next game at Princess Auto Stadium. Hopefully with the 1-1 Bombers after dropping the home opener last night. All right, what's the sitch?
It's loading here. We've got the race. Put in the chip balls. Feeling good here. A lot of talk about chip balls today.
Yeah, chip balls. That's the name of the topic of the day around CFL circles, and certainly here in Winnipeg.
I did want to add in that, like you're gonna trust the company that couldn't put the stats together for all of last season that they can successfully chip a football. I'll trust the kickers, the 9 kickers in the league who are opposed to, say it changes the flight of the ball. So we'll see what happens with that. If that's a story that goes throughout the season. I don't know. I've heard way too much about Genius Sports the last couple of years. Can you tell me the name of the stats provider for any other professional sports league? Like, why are we hearing about these guys all the time? And it's always
because it didn't work.
It's always negative.
That's why.
It's always
if the thing works, it's just the people that do the stats get the stats. Mm-hmm. If the stats are a problem for an entire season, people start asking, what the hell's going on? Who's in charge? Oh, it's Genius Sports. So not quite genius level performance last year. So far, so good with the stats this season, But now chip balls, a big topic here in CFL land.
Can't tell you, the name of any other provider in any other sport. Hearing about these guys way too much. I wanted to get that in there before we, I have the control over the marble race, so I had to get that in. But let me bring it up. I thought this was a cool track. What's it called?
Oh, yeah.
World Record Tango. There's 209 marbles in here.
Excellent. All right, folks. You know what we're doing here? We're playing for a WST Champions hoodie, courtesy of our friends at Shipham and Associates. And the only way to get one is to win one. This is your opportunity to do it. You do have to be subscribed to the channel to win, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, hit that like. And now, sit back. Good luck to all of you. Another new track, the World Record Tango. Marbles Friday on WST. Let's go. Big funnel to start this one off. Very interesting. Oh, it's like actually a ramp into a funnel or a multiple. Oh, no, it just went straight in. Whoa. We already had one person fall off. I don't know who that was. Oh, yeah, this is cool. It's like a little bit of a miniature golf race. By the way, speaking of miniature golf, Kabilas and anybody else out there with Xbox Game Pass, check out Turbo Kart Golf. It's like a Rocket League golf, if that makes sense to you, if you're familiar with Rocket League, a physics-based kind of car game. Very, very fun. We may have to get a stream with a few of you if you're able to join us at some point on it. All right, we're moving down. We got a little separation. Holy smoly is in first. Oh, look who's in second. Bailey, the official intern. What's up, Bay? Oh, Daryl M. and Russ Lowen just got top roped. Bob McCullough, Duck Dad. Sorry about that, Duck Dad. Lambert. Oh, Matt Hyman as well. All the lock shoppers are getting whacked early. What's up with that? But Bailey's looking good. Hockey Dad. Holy smoly. Ron P. and Jeremy Nickerson all in the mix right now. Hockey Dad taking a little bit of a lead, but it is very, very close right now. Bart Oman just got eliminated. Sorry about that, Bart. Hockey Dad in first on one side. MC Stormy on the other, along with Dylan. You see Daryl and Jeremy right behind. Whoa! The Danimal just got thrown out and then ended up, did you see that, Reem?
Yeah, he just landed in front of everyone.
Only appropriate. Listen, if Danimal wins today, I've got a story about Danimal in a minute. Danimal is the guy that made the infamous, incredible Bones chain. And I did show Bones the chain off air. He absolutely loved it. And I also told him that you had the sign at the playoffs for timely goals, and he cracked up big time. Danimal, who was getting eliminated, somehow made it onto one of the lower levels and now has a clear lead. I mean, this race is Danimal's to lose. But we'll see what happens. Now, this is wild. What is he in? Some sort of a...
It's like over.
An octopus.
He's in.
Oh, Danimal's got it. All right, Danimal is our winner. Nicely done. Let's see who makes it out. It was a miracle. The Bones miracle for the guy who made the Bones chain. Danimal, well done. Well done, buddy. That is karma, if there ever was one, on the day that we had Bones join the program. So Danimal took it down. Peg City Hawks fan in 2. What? Waiters? How about Waiters getting into the top 3? Nicely done. Stem Inlet 4, Ray 5th. Holy Smoly was 6th. Nice race by Holy Smoly. Carly Cluxon in 7th. Noah Laforte, Greg M, and Felix Pet Cow, your top 10 in today's marble race. But a bit of a marbles miracle today. Every now and then something wild happens, and it was Danimal on Bones Day today. Bones' biggest fan winning the marble race right after Bones' first appearance on WST, in person at least, as far as for an interview. All right, Reem, let's give us a little rundown. And to see where myself and Bozeman finished up in our head-to-head bet. But also everyone always likes to see where they finished up. Well, look at Tyson Ducharme, 11th. Nicely done. Swerve and Mervyn, T-Bone, Jeremy Nickerson, T-Kona Cliff, not to be confused with T-Kona Polly. Brant Batters, Amy Weeb. See MC Stormy and Bardo there. There's Phyllis, Hockey Dad. Yak Man. There's Mike Wynn. Good to see you at the ballpark, Mike. Hope you have a great weekend. See Derek Schmidt, Granny Bomber fan got in. Pat Rathwell. What's up, Pat? Pat, one of the organizers of the crew. The trip to Regina for the Labor Day Classic. You want more information on that? The 1930 crew on Twitter and on Instagram. Looking for my marble, and I'm looking for Bozeman's marble. Who's going to be up first? Oh, there's Amanda, just outside of the top 100. Tristan Rivers Music. See Andrew Kaleko. I still haven't seen. There's Issue Boy Bruce. Peg City Dude. Frosty Winnipeg. Geez, no Huss, no Bozeman yet. There's Ross. Ross Ransby. Nice work, Ross. I think he beat both of us. Oh, I was last. Dead last at 170, but I think I haven't seen Bozeman. He might have gotten thrown over the top rope.
I don't see him in here. I don't know.
He maybe not make the race today. That doesn't seem. I hope everything's okay with Shorn if that's the case. I mean, for crying out loud, the guy entered the marble race from Hawaii. Ross entered from France one day. They don't miss the. They don't miss it. Well, we'll have to go back. Maybe we missed him earlier on, but. That is going to do it for us. Remo, what's up for the weekend?
I'm not sure. I'm supposed to play hockey tonight. I got some friends going to the Beer Fest, Huss. That's at the Canada Life Center tonight. But
I will be there.
Will you be there?
Flatlanders, I am in. Are you going?
Some of my friends are going. I really want to, but I'm got a hockey game. My team is short guys, like Friday night.
How many hockey games do you have a week?
Usually one or two.
I thought you already had like two this week.
We had one Monday, but I had to bail on it. So I want to play this one. I want to be the, I'm
Friday night games in the summer. Like, I cannot believe that you guys sign up for that. That is.
I don't know if they I don't know if they have them in July and August, but I got nothing else going. I like playing. I don't mind. Nothing beats going to the rink, Huss, in like shorts and flip flops. I enjoy it. It's fun.
That is. I mean, timing is everything. I just say, I don't know. The Fridays in the summer are so good. But hey, enjoy your game. Good luck.
I'll be
at Flatlanders Beer Festival. I'm in for that.
I'm in the city, and if I sign up for a team, I'm committed to it. I'm not like those other people who just bail on because they find something better to do. That's not my style.
No, I agree, and that's noble. I just question why anyone would sign up for a hockey league where you're playing Friday nights throughout the summer.
I don't think there's July, August, and again, like I'm here. What else am I gonna do?
Remo's team, 3 practices a week. I mean, listen, they are spring hockey hardos, guys. There's no doubt about it. They're what league? Do you play at the Iceplex or the Highlander?
What is it called? Ice Sports now? Highlander? Yeah, I play there. Don't look up my stats or anything.
Do they have stats?
Yeah, they have better stats than the CFL. You can see my historical stats going back 20 years. I don't think you can do that on the CFL website.
No, you can't.
You can see like the last 5 years. You can see my whole career on CFL. And they have guys who aren't even playing. If someone's not in the league on CFL, you can't see their stats anymore.
Oh, that says it all. Don't let genius get involved with the Highlander Hockey League.
Yeah, like
they seem to have a good thing going.
Yeah, like what a name.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Folks, listen, I think that's about going to do it for tonight. Yeah, I'm going to be at Flatlanders tonight. So if you're out there, say hi. Looking forward to this football game tonight. Game 1 of the Cup Final tomorrow. NBA Finals Game 2. Didn't really talk about that much today. Celtics, Kristaps Porzingis, big time last night. I do hope Dallas can get back into this one. But 3 down football's back with a game every day throughout the weekend. And we'll be back at it next week, and I would imagine that we might start hearing a little bit more about the Winnipeg Jets assistant coaching search. And listen, we'll also get into, what's happening as we get closer to July 1st. And certainly our week down in Vegas. Of course, the NHL draft on WST, brought to you by Coolbet, begins Wednesday, June 26th from Sin City, right through the final pick of the 7th round on Saturday. That is going to do it for us. Thank you, Rick Bowness, for jumping on today. It was an absolute pleasure having him on. And, of course, we had to talk Bombers. As ugly as the game was last night, it's only one game. John Hodge, Scott Billeck, awesome. Remo taking care of business as always. And all of you hanging out with us. Have a great weekend. And we will look forward to talking to you on Monday, 1 p.m. live on YouTube and, of course, on your podcast feed right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great one.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.